The world outside has fallen quiet. The sounds of the day have faded into a gentle hum. And yet, here in the stillness of your room, a storm rages on. You lie with your eyes closed, seeking the refuge of sleep, but your mind refuses to rest. It has become a frantic cinema, projecting image after image onto the screen of your awareness. The day that has just passed plays out in vivid detail. Conversations are relived, actions are rejudged. Then, the reel shifts to the future, a landscape filled with worries, plans, and endless possibilities for things to go wrong. Unfinished tasks, unspoken words, and formless fears dance like shadows on a wall, holding you captive in a state between waking and sleeping, a state of profound exhaustion. This is a weight that so many of us carry, a feeling of being trapped inside the very place we should feel most free, our own mind. We become prisoners in a cage of our own making, and the key seems to be forever lost. We try to fight it. We command the thoughts to stop. We push against the anxiety, but we find that our resistance is like trying to calm a storm by shouting at the wind. The more we struggle, the tighter the grip becomes, the louder the noise gets, and the further away peace seems to drift. We are not just physically tired. We are spiritually drained from this constant internal battle, a war waged against ourselves. But what if the path to peace isn't through fighting? What if the key was never about silencing the mind, but about learning to listen to it differently? What if the freedom you seek comes not from forcing the storm to cease, but from finding the unshakable stillness in the eye of the hurricane? This journey we are about to embark upon is rooted in an ancient wisdom, a gentle path that sees the mind not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a landscape to be understood. It is the art of letting go, of gently unclenching the fist that has been holding on so tightly to worries, regrets, and fears. It is the profound realization that you are not the clouds of thought passing through the sky, but the vast, open, peaceful sky itself. Over the next few hours, we will not be forcing anything. We will simply be creating a space, a gentle, welcoming space for your mind to soften, for your body to release, and for peace to arise naturally, just as a flower opens in its own time. This is an invitation to come home to yourself, to find the sanctuary that has always been waiting for you, right here, in this very moment. Let us begin by gently turning our attention inward to a place beneath the surface noise of our thoughts. Imagine, if you will, that you are setting out on a long journey, and on your back you carry a large, sturdy backpack. As you begin to walk, you notice its weight. It is not uncomfortable at first, just a familiar pressure that you have grown accustomed to. You have been carrying it for so long, you hardly remember a time without it. Now, in this quiet moment, let's allow ourselves the curiosity to stop, to rest for a moment, and to look inside this backpack. As you open it, you see it is filled not with clothes or food, but with stones. Each one is smooth, heavy, and strangely familiar. You pick one up, and as you hold it, a memory arises, a regret from years ago, still sharp and painful. You pick up another, and feel a surge of anxiety about a meeting next week. Another stone feels like a specific person's name, and with it comes a complex tangle of love, expectation, and fear. Another is the heavy weight of a role you play, the good son, the successful employee, the perfect partner. This backpack, this invisible weight that we carry through every moment of our lives, is the weight of our attachments. What is this thing we call attachment? The word itself seems simple. We think of our attachment to a favorite sweater or a sentimental object from our childhood, but its roots go so much deeper, winding themselves around the very core of our perceived identity. We are attached not just to things, but to ideas. We cling to our opinions, our beliefs about right and wrong, our vision of how the world should be. We hold them so tightly that when someone challenges them, it feels like a personal attack, a threat to our very existence. We are attached to memories, holding on to golden moments from the past, trying to relive their warmth, and in doing so, we miss the warmth of the sun shining today. We are also attached to our pain, strangely enough. We replay old hurts, we nurture grievances, because in a way, they have become a part of our story, a part of who we believe we are. We are attached to our future, to our meticulously crafted plans and desperate hopes, believing that our happiness is located somewhere on the horizon, just after we achieve the next thing on our list. And most profoundly, we are attached to our own self-image, this character we have created, this me with its history, its talents, its flaws, and its ambitions. We spend so much energy polishing and defending this statue of ourselves, fearing any crack in its surface. Why does the mind do this? Why does it insist on collecting these heavy stones and carrying them everywhere? The reason is rooted in a deep, fundamental fear. It is the fear of loss, the fear of uncertainty, and the terror of impermanence. In a world where everything is constantly changing, flowing, and slipping through our fingers, attachment offers a false promise of security. It is the mind's attempt to build a fortress on shifting sands, to grasp onto something solid in the midst of a flowing river. If I can just hold on to this job, this relationship, this belief, then I will be safe. If I can control the outcome, then I can avoid pain. It is a natural, deeply human instinct, a survival mechanism of the ego that mistakes stillness for safety. But the safety is an illusion, and the effort required to maintain it is immense. The clinging itself, the constant tensing and grasping, is what creates the strain, the anxiety, the deep, soul-level weariness that you may be feeling right now. This leads us to one of the most liberating truths of this wisdom path. The suffering in our lives does not come from the objects of our attachment. It does not come from the job, the money, the person, or the memory itself. The suffering comes from the act of clinging. The pain is in the fist, not in the thing it holds. A beautiful sunset is a source of pure joy. The suffering only begins when the mind laments its ending and tries to hold onto it to prevent the night from falling. A loving relationship is a source of immense happiness. The suffering begins with the fear of it ending, with the jealousy that seeks to possess, with the expectation that this person must be the unending source of our well-being. The thing itself is neutral. It is our attachment, our demand that it stay fixed and unchanging for our benefit, that transforms it into a source of pain. This is the hot coal we are clutching in our hand, believing it is a precious gem. The burning we feel is not a punishment from the world. It is simply the natural consequence of refusing to open our hand. There is a beautiful old story that illustrates this perfectly. Two Zen monks, one older and one younger, were on a long journey. They came to a river where the bridge had been washed away. A young woman in a beautiful silk kimono stood there, distraught, unable to cross the muddy water without ruining her clothes. Without a word, the older monk walked up to her, lifted her into his arms, carried her across the river, and set her down gently on the other side. He bowed, and the monks continued their journey. The younger monk was appalled. He was speechless, his mind in a turmoil. They had taken strict vows never to touch a woman, and his master had just carried one in his arms. For hours, they walked in silence, but the younger monk's mind was a raging storm. He replayed the scene over and over, his indignation growing with every step. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he burst out, "Master, how could you do that? Our vows forbid us from such contact. You touched that woman, you carried her." The old monk looked at his student with a calm, gentle expression. He paused for a moment, and then said softly, "I left the woman by the river hours ago. Are you still carrying her?" This question echoes through the chambers of our own hearts. What are we still carrying? What old resentments? What past failures? What ancient arguments have we been holding in our minds for hours, for days, for years? The event itself is long gone, a ripple that has already disappeared into the vast ocean of time. But we, like the young monk, keep the story alive. We keep the weight in our backpack, believing it is somehow important to do so. It is here that we must make a vital distinction between the imprisoning nature of attachment and the liberating power of love. Love and attachment can look similar from the outside, but their inner essence is worlds apart. Attachment is a chain. It says, I need you to be a certain way to make me happy. I am afraid of losing you. I want to own and possess you. It is rooted in fear and scarcity. Love, true love, is a pair of wings. It says, I wish for your happiness unconditionally. I celebrate your freedom. I delight in your existence just as you are. Love is rooted in generosity and freedom. It is the difference between building a cage for a beautiful bird and planting a garden so that the bird may choose to visit. When we let go of attachment, we are not letting go of love. On the contrary, we are clearing the way for a purer, more expansive, and unconditional love to flow through us. We are taking the first courageous step towards setting down the heavy stones one by one. The first step is simply this: the gentle, non-judgmental awareness that you have been carrying them at all. And now that we have felt this weight, let us turn our gaze to the very nature of the world itself, to see why the act of holding on is not only exhausting but ultimately impossible. We have just felt the immense weight of the stones in our backpack, the burdens of attachment we carry so faithfully. We carry them because we crave certainty. We long for a solid ground beneath our feet, a promise that the things we love will last forever. But now, I invite you to listen to a deeper truth, a rhythm that underlies all of existence. It is the gentle, constant, and unstoppable flow of a great river. The ancient philosopher Heraclitus said that you can never step into the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and you are not the same person. This is the profound truth of impermanence. It is the universal law of change, and understanding it is the key to unclenching the fist of attachment and allowing the heavy stones to finally fall away. Look around you, even in the stillness of this room, and you will see the subtle dance of change. The moonlight shifts as the moon travels across the sky. Outside, the leaves on the trees are in a slow, imperceptible process of growth or decay. The very building you are in is slowly aging, weathering the seasons, infinitesimally different than it was a moment ago. The world is not a collection of fixed objects, but a symphony of processes, a constant, unfolding event. Now, bring this awareness into your own body. Your body is not a solid, static thing. It is a river of life. With every breath you take, air flows in, and with every exhalation, it flows out. Your heart beats a steady rhythm, pushing life through your veins. Billions of cells are in a constant state of being born, living, and dying. The person you were 7 years ago is, on a cellular level, almost entirely gone. You are not a statue, you are a process, a flowing pattern of change, a wave in the great ocean of life. And what about your mind? Notice the thoughts that drift through your awareness. One moment, a memory of yesterday. The next, a plan for tomorrow. Then, a snippet of a song, an image, a feeling of warmth, a sudden itch. They appear as if from nowhere, linger for a moment, and then dissolve, replaced by the next one. They are like clouds passing through the vast sky of your mind. We cause ourselves so much pain when we try to grab onto one cloud, demanding that it stay, or when we try to frantically bat another cloud away. And our emotions, they are the same. Happiness, sadness, anger, peace, none of them are permanent residents. They are visitors. They arrive, they stay for a while, and then they leave. The deep suffering arises when we cling to the pleasant visitors, falling into despair when they depart, and when we barricade the door against the unpleasant ones, exhausting ourselves in a fight against their inevitable arrival. Impermanence teaches us to be a gracious host to all of our emotional visitors, to offer them a seat and listen to what they have to say, knowing that none of them will stay forever. If change is the most fundamental law of the universe, then our resistance to it is the primary source of our anxiety. It is the act of trying to build a dam in the middle of that great flowing river. It is a struggle against reality itself, and it is a struggle we are destined to lose. This struggle is the tension you feel in your shoulders, the knot in your stomach, the frantic buzzing in your mind. It is the friction between our desire for permanence and the world's true fluid nature. Accepting impermanence is not a pessimistic or nihilistic act. It is an act of profound wisdom and kindness to ourselves. It is the choice to stop fighting the current and instead to learn how to gracefully float, to navigate the twists and turns with a sense of trust and ease. It is aligning ourselves with the truth of how things are, and in that alignment, we find a deep and abiding peace. There is a timeless Taoist story about an old farmer that perfectly illustrates this wisdom. One day, the farmer's only horse, which he used for plowing his fields, ran away. His neighbors all came to console him, clicking their tongues and saying, "Oh, what terrible luck, this is a disaster." The old farmer simply looked at them and replied calmly, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who can say?" A few days later, the horse returned, and it brought with it a whole herd of wild horses. The neighbors, their faces beaming, rushed over to congratulate him. "What marvelous luck! Now you are a rich man." The old farmer just smiled and said, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who can say?" The next week, the farmer's son was trying to tame one of the wild horses when it threw him, and he broke his leg. The neighbors came again, shaking their heads in sorrow. "How awful. First you are lucky, and now this terrible misfortune." The farmer, looking at his son's bandaged leg, replied as always, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who can say?" A few weeks passed, and the emperor's army came through the village, conscripting all the able-bodied young men for a war they were unlikely to survive. When they saw the farmer's son with his broken leg, they passed him by. The neighbors, overwhelmed with relief and awe, came to the farmer. "You were right all along. Your son's injury was the greatest luck of all." The farmer simply nodded. "Good luck? Bad luck? Who can say?" This story teaches us that we label events based on a very limited, incomplete understanding. We see only a tiny ripple in the river, not the entire course it will take. The thing we call bad today may be the seed of something wonderful tomorrow. The thing we celebrate as good may lead to unforeseen challenges. The wisdom of the farmer, the wisdom of impermanence, is to release our tight grip on these labels. It is to accept the flow of life's events without the need to immediately judge them as a victory or a defeat. It is to trust the unfolding process, even when we cannot understand it. When we truly let this understanding sink into our bones, it doesn't lead to despair. It leads to an incredible sense of freedom and beauty. The knowledge that everything changes means that you are not permanently defined by your past. Your mistakes are not etched in stone. Every single moment, every single breath is a chance to begin again. It also makes the present moment infinitely precious, because this moment, right now, will never happen again. It becomes a sacred gift. We can truly savor the taste of water, feel the warmth of our blanket, and appreciate the simple act of breathing, because we know it is fleeting. It replaces the anxious need to cling with a gentle, heartfelt appreciation. And in times of pain or difficulty, the wisdom of impermanence becomes our most powerful solace. When we are lost in sorrow, we can whisper to ourselves, "This too shall pass." When we are gripped by anxiety, we can remember that the storm clouds will eventually part. It gives us the strength to endure, knowing that no condition is permanent. We have seen the weight of the burdens we carry, born from our desire for things to stay the same. And now, we see that the very nature of life is to change, to flow, to transform. The act of clinging is therefore a fight against the entire universe. So if everything is a flowing river, if even our bodies and minds are in constant flux, where can we possibly find a stable ground? Where is the place of refuge in a world where nothing lasts? The answer does not lie in stopping the river, but in finding the one place that is always still, the one place that is ever present, regardless of the changing currents. We have stood at the bank of the great river of impermanence, realizing that everything we try to hold on to is destined to change and flow away. Our bodies, our thoughts, our world, all are in constant motion. This realization can feel unsettling, as if the very ground has dissolved beneath us. It begs the question, if everything is changing, where can we find refuge? Where is the safe harbor in the midst of this relentless current? The answer is both surprisingly simple and profoundly deep. The refuge is not a place you can travel to. It is not a state you can achieve in the future, and it is not a memory you can retreat into from the past. The only safe harbor, the only ground that is ever truly solid, is the present moment. Your refuge is right here, right now. The human mind, however, is a masterful time traveler. It rarely stays in the present for long. It has two favorite destinations, the past and the future, and it spends most of its energy journeying between them. Let's first look at the past. The mind loves to wander through its corridors, which often feel more like a haunted museum than a peaceful garden. In one wing of this museum, it replays our mistakes, our failures, our moments of embarrassment. We cringe at something we said 10 years ago. We feel the sting of an old rejection as if it happened yesterday. We are constantly editing a book that has already been printed, exhausting ourselves in a futile attempt to change what cannot be changed. In another wing of the museum are the golden moments, the cherished memories of happiness and success. We cling to these, comparing the present unfavorably to that perfect time. And this nostalgia, while sweet, can cast a shadow over our current life, preventing us from seeing the goodness that is right in front of us. Whether we are lost in regret or nostalgia, when we live in the past, we are living with ghosts. We are absent from the only life we actually have. The mind's other favorite destination is the future, a land of shimmering phantoms and vague threats. The future is a blank screen, and our anxious mind is a very creative projector. It projects endless scenarios of what could go wrong. It plays out imaginary arguments. It frets over potential disasters. It lives in a state of constant preparation for a crisis that may never arrive. We tell ourselves, "I will be happy when I get that promotion. I can relax after this project is finished. My life will begin once I find the right partner." We postpone our peace, believing it is a reward to be earned in the future. But the future never arrives. It is always just an idea, a concept in the mind. When tomorrow comes, it will arrive as a now. By constantly living in the future, we are chasing a horizon that recedes with every step we take. We are trying to navigate a country with a map that has not yet been drawn. This constant time travel, this shuttling between the ghosts of yesterday and the phantoms of tomorrow, is the source of our deep dis-ease. Life is happening in the present moment. The richness, the texture, the reality of life is now, but we are missing it. We are absent landlords of our own existence. The good news is that we have the power to come home. All of our power, all of our freedom exists in this very moment. You cannot undo a single moment of the past. You cannot control the next moment to come. But right here, right now, you have a choice. You can choose where to place your attention. You can choose to arrive fully in your own life. Peace is not found by meticulously resolving every ghost from the past, or by building an impenetrable fortress against every phantom of the future. Peace is the simple, radical act of showing up for your life, right here, as it is. So how do we do this? How do we call the time-traveling mind home? The mind gets lost in abstract thoughts about yesterday and tomorrow, but your body and your senses are always, unfailingly, in the present moment. They are the anchors that can tether your wandering awareness to the reality of the now. Let's try this, just for a moment. Bring your attention to the feeling of touch. Notice the points of contact between your body and the surface it is resting on. Feel the weight of your head on the pillow, the gentle pressure where your hands are resting, the texture of the blanket against your skin. These sensations are not memories. They are not worries. They are real, physical events happening right now. Now, let your awareness open to the world of sound. Don't try to label the sounds, just let them be as they are. Hear the gentle hum of the room, a distant noise from outside, the sound of your own quiet breath. Let your ears simply be open receivers for the symphony of this present moment, without judgment, without commentary. The sounds come, they stay for a moment, and they go. Allow yourself to rest in this simple, direct experience. Even with your eyes closed, you can notice the play of light and shadow on the inside of your eyelids. These subtle patterns exist only in the now. Your body is your most faithful friend in the practice of mindfulness, for it never leaves the present moment. There is a simple story that illuminates this practice beautifully. Imagine a person drinking a cup of tea. In the first scenario, the person is holding the warm cup, but their mind is 1,000 miles away. They are thinking about a work deadline, they are replaying an argument they had with a friend, they are making a mental grocery list. They lift the cup to their lips, they swallow the tea, but they do not taste it. They do not feel its warmth. They do not smell its fragrance. Their body went through the motions of drinking tea, but they were not there for the experience. The moment was lost. Now, imagine a second scenario. The person holds the cup of tea and decides to be fully present for it. They feel the smooth, warm ceramic in their hands. They watch the delicate steam rising into the air. They bring the cup to their nose and inhale the rich, earthy aroma. Then, they take a small sip and allow the liquid to coat their tongue, truly tasting its complex notes, its subtle bitterness and sweetness. In this moment, there are no deadlines, no arguments, no grocery lists. There is only the direct, rich, and full experience of drinking tea. The tea is the same in both scenarios. The world is the same. The only thing that has changed is the quality of attention. This is the power of the present moment. It can transform the most mundane activity into a profound meditation, a moment of deep connection with life. This is a practice you can bring to anything. When you walk, you can feel the sensation of your feet on the floor. When you wash the dishes, you can feel the warmth of the water and see the glistening of the soap bubbles. When you listen to a loved one, you can offer them the gift of your full, undivided attention, rather than just waiting for your turn to speak. The quality of our lives is not determined by the grandeur of our activities, but by the depth of presence we bring to them. So, we see that the present moment is our true home, our safe harbor from the turbulent waters of past and future. We see that our senses are the pathways, the secret gateways that can lead us back home whenever we feel lost. But in the midst of all the sights and sounds and sensations, there is one anchor that is always with us. It is more constant than the light, more intimate than any touch. It rises and falls with a steady, reliable rhythm, a silent companion that has been with you since the moment of your birth and will stay with you until your very last. To truly steady ourselves in the present, we must learn to rest our attention upon this most faithful friend. we have arrived at the shore of the present moment, our safe and solid harbor. We have learned that our senses can serve as gateways, bringing our wandering minds back from the ghostly realms of past and future. But amidst all the fleeting sights and sounds, we need an anchor that is utterly reliable, something so constant and intimate that it can become the unshakable center of our practice. This anchor, this most faithful companion, is your own breath. It is the gentle rhythm of life itself, the current that has flowed through you without pause from the moment you were born. It asks for nothing. It is always here, always in the present. It is the bridge that connects your conscious mind to your physical body, the seen to the unseen. Learning to rest your attention on the breath is the most fundamental and powerful way to come home to the now. So, let us begin this gentle practice. There is nothing to force, nothing to achieve. Simply allow your awareness to find the sensation of your own breathing. You might notice it most clearly at the tip of your nostrils, feeling the subtle coolness of the air as it enters your body and the gentle warmth as it leaves. Or perhaps you feel it more in your chest, a gentle expansion and contraction. Or maybe you can rest your attention on your abdomen, feeling the soft rising as you breathe in and the gentle falling as you breathe out. There is no right or wrong place. Simply choose one spot and let your attention rest there, as lightly as a butterfly landing on a flower. The most important invitation here is to let the breath be completely natural. We are not trying to control it, to make it deeper or slower or smoother. The goal is not to have a special kind of breath. The goal is simply to feel the breath exactly as it is. Is it shallow right now? That is perfectly fine. Is it deep? That is also fine. Your only task is to be the gentle, curious observer of this natural rhythm. Feel the entire journey of one in-breath, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Feel the slight pause that may come after, and then feel the entire journey of the out-breath, a beginning, a middle, and an end. There is no need to judge it, to analyze it, or even to name it. Simply feel, resting in the pure physical sensation of breathing. For these few moments, this is your entire world. The rise and fall, the in and the out. This simple, honest rhythm is the anchor for your mind. Now, very soon after you begin this, you will notice something. Your mind will wander. This is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you have a perfectly normal human mind. The mind produces thoughts just as the heart beats. It will drift off into a plan about tomorrow. It will get caught in a memory from last week. It will start composing an email or worrying about a sound it just heard. This is what minds do. The real practice, the moment of true mindfulness, is not in preventing the mind from wandering. The magic is in the moment you realize it has wandered. That moment of, oh, my mind is thinking about work again, is a moment of pure awareness. It is a small, shining victory. And in that moment, the instruction is incredibly simple and incredibly kind. Without any anger, without any frustration or self-criticism, you gently and lovingly guide your attention back to the anchor of the breath. That's all. You simply begin again, feeling the rise and fall of the abdomen. And when the mind wanders again, which it will, you will notice it again, and you will gently, kindly bring it back again. Imagine a farmer who wants to tame a strong, wild buffalo. The buffalo represents our untamed mind, full of powerful energy, always wanting to roam into the fields of distracting thoughts and emotions. The farmer represents our patient awareness. The farmer goes to a field and drives a strong post deep into the ground. This post is the present moment. Then, the farmer takes a sturdy rope, which is the breath, and ties the buffalo to the post. At first, the buffalo is furious. It pulls and strains against the rope, trying to run away. It rages and exhausts itself, but the rope, the breath, is always there, gently but firmly bringing it back to the center post. The The farmer does not beat the buffalo. He does not shout at it or punish it for its wildness. He simply sits down at a distance and waits patiently. He trusts the process. Over time, the buffalo learns that its struggle is futile and tiring. It realizes that the rope is not there to harm it, but simply to guide it. Eventually, the great animal grows calm and lies down peacefully at the foot of the post. Our mind is just like this buffalo. Our awareness is the patient farmer, and the breath is the gentle rope. We do not need to fight our thoughts. We simply need to tie our attention gently to the breath. And each time the mind pulls away, we don't yank it back harshly. We just feel the gentle tug of the rope and allow it to guide us home. This act of returning over and over again is the essence of the practice. And every return is a profound act of self-compassion. The world has taught us to be hard on ourselves, to criticize our lack of focus. An inner voice might arise that says, "I'm terrible at this," or "My mind is just too busy." This practice invites us to notice that critical voice as just another thought, another cloud passing in the sky. And instead, we choose kindness. Each time we guide our attention back to the breath, we are like a loving parent with a small child who has wandered off in a park. We don't scold the child. We gently take their hand and say, "There you are. It's okay. Let's go back home now." The breath is our home base. It is always waiting for us, a safe refuge available in any moment. So let us rest here for a while, with this simple, profound task, resting the attention on the breath, noticing when the mind has wandered, and with infinite patience and kindness, guiding it back, again and again and again. There is nowhere else to be, nothing else to do, just this breath, in this body, in this moment. As we continue to rest our attention on this anchor, we begin to notice the nature of the mind's wanderings more clearly. We see the thoughts, emotions, and stories as they arise and pass away. We are no longer completely lost in them, but are instead watching them from the stable shore of the breath. This brings us to a new and crucial question. What is this endless stream of thoughts that flows through the mind? And how can we learn to relate to it with wisdom and freedom? As we rest our attention on the gentle, rhythmic anchor of the breath, we begin to notice the weather of our inner world. Just behind the quiet foreground of the breath, there is a constant stream of activity. This is the endless river of thought. For most of our lives, we are lost in this river, swept away by its currents, tossed about by its rapids, unaware that we are even wet. The practice of mindfulness offers us a revolutionary new perspective. It invites us to step out of the river, to sit on the bank, and to simply watch the water flow by. Let us use a different image, one that can fundamentally change your relationship with your own mind. Imagine that your awareness, your true nature, is like a vast, open, boundless sky. It is always here, calm, silent, and spacious. Your thoughts, on the other hand, are like the clouds that drift through this sky. Sometimes, the sky of your mind is clear and blue, with only a few wisps of thought passing by. At other times, it is filled with big, fluffy, white clouds of pleasant memories or creative daydreams. And sometimes, the sky is dark and heavy, with the grey storm clouds of worry, anger, or sadness. The clouds are constantly changing, constantly moving, appearing and dissolving. But the sky itself, your essential awareness, is never harmed, never stained, and never changed by the clouds that pass through it. The sky doesn't cling to the beautiful clouds, and it doesn't try to fight or push away the storm clouds. It simply allows them all to be, providing the space for them to come and go. The greatest source of our suffering is that we forget we are the sky, and we believe we are a cloud. This is the most liberating secret of the inner world. You are not your thoughts. You have thoughts, but they are not you. The part of you that can notice a thought, the part of you that is aware that you are thinking, is by its very nature separate from the thought itself. This awareness is the sky. The thought is the passing cloud. When we forget this, we make a critical mistake. A thought appears, perhaps a thought of a past mistake, and it says, "I am a failure." If we believe we are the thought, we internalize this message. We feel the shame, the contraction, the heavy weight of that identity. We take a fleeting, insubstantial wisp of mental energy, and we turn it into a solid, heavy stone in our backpack. But if we can remember that we are the sky, our response changes. The thought cloud, "I am a failure," drifts by. We, the sky, notice it. We can see it, acknowledge its presence, but we don't have to become it. We can see it for what it is, just a thought, a pattern of energy, a cloud passing through the vast space of our awareness. In this space between the awareness and the thought lies all our freedom. So how do we cultivate this space? How do we practice being the sky instead of the cloud? A simple and gentle technique is to label the thoughts. This is not a harsh act of categorization, but a soft, silent noting that helps us to see the thoughts more clearly without getting entangled in their stories. As you rest with your breath, you will notice the moment your attention gets pulled away. In that moment, instead of following the thought down its rabbit hole, you can gently apply a label. If you find yourself worrying about the future, you can silently note in your mind, "Worrying." If you are replaying a conversation, you can note, "Remembering." If you are figuring out a problem, "Planning." If you are being hard on yourself, "Judging." The label is not meant for analysis. It is a simple tool to acknowledge the thought, to name it, and in doing so, to gently disidentify from it. It's like being a scientist of your own mind, observing the data without getting lost in it. There is a planning thought. There is a memory thought. This simple act of naming keeps you on the riverbank, watching the flow, instead of being swept away by it. Imagine you are sitting peacefully in your home, which represents your mind. Suddenly, the door flies open and a very rude, unpleasant guest walks in uninvited. This guest is a persistent negative thought, perhaps a worry or a self-criticism. Your first instinct, the one we all have, is to fight. You try to push the guest out the door. You argue with him, telling him he has no right to be here. This creates a terrible commotion. Furniture gets knocked over. You are shouting. The guest is shouting back, and your peaceful home is now a chaotic battlefield. You are exhausted, and worse still, the guest is still there, now more energized and stubborn than ever from the fight. This is what happens when we try to battle our negative thoughts. Now, let's imagine a different approach, a wiser one. The uninvited guest walks in. This time, instead of fighting, you simply acknowledge his presence with a calm nod. You don't engage him. You don't offer him tea. You don't ask him why he is here. You don't get drawn into his attempts to start an argument. You simply allow him to be there, in the corner of the room, while you continue to go about your business, resting in your own peace. You give him none of your attention, none of your energy. What happens? Soon, the guest becomes bored. There is no drama to fuel him, no one to fight with. He realizes he is not being welcomed or entertained, and of his own accord, he gets up and quietly leaves. Negative thoughts are exactly like this uninvited guest. The more we fight them, the stronger they become. But when we observe them without feeding them the tea of our belief and attention, they lose their power. They are clouds, and without our energy to sustain them, they naturally dissolve back into the spaciousness of the sky. This practice of non-engagement can then be softened even further into a practice of compassion. Sometimes, our difficult thoughts are like crying children. They are manifestations of our past pain, our deep-seated fears. They are not enemies to be vanquished. They are parts of us that are hurting. When a harsh, self-critical thought arises, instead of fighting it or believing it, we can learn to hold it with a gentle, compassionate awareness. We can say to it silently, "I see you. I see the pain you come from. It's okay. We don't have to agree with the content of the thought, but we can have compassion for the underlying feeling. This act of treating our own thoughts with kindness fundamentally changes our inner landscape, transforming it from a battlefield into a space of healing and acceptance. So the invitation is this: as you rest here, continue to use the breath as your anchor. And when a thought arises, as it will, see if you can meet it with this new wisdom. See it as a cloud passing through the vast, peaceful sky of your mind. If it helps, you can label it softly, thinking or worrying. Remember the uninvited guest and choose not to serve the thought your tea. You are the sky, vast, open, and free. You are not the fleeting weather that passes through you. Let the clouds come, let them stay for a moment, and let them go. Your nature, your home, is the peaceful, unchanging sky. And just as these thoughts are visitors that pass through the mind, we will soon see that our emotions are also visitors, guests that arrive in the heart and the body, who can be met with the very same wisdom, spaciousness, and gentle care. We have learned to sit on the riverbank of the mind, watching the clouds of thought drift by without being swept away. We have found a measure of freedom in the sky-like nature of our own awareness. Now, we turn our attention from the visitors in the mind to the guests that arrive in the heart and the body. These are our emotions. In the English language, the word emotion contains its own definition. It is energy in motion, emotion. It is not a static state, but a dynamic, flowing current of energy that moves through us. Just like the weather, our emotional landscape is constantly changing. And just like with the weather, we cause ourselves immense suffering when we try to control it. We spend our lives trying to barricade our hearts against the storms of sadness and fear, while desperately trying to trap the sunbeams of joy and hold them in place forever. But wisdom teaches us a different way, a middle path between a desperate clinging and a fearful resistance. It is the path of making friends with our feelings, of learning to allow this energy to move through us with grace. For most of us, our primary strategy for dealing with difficult emotions is suppression. From a young age, we are often taught that certain feelings are unacceptable. We are told not to cry, not to be angry, not to show fear. So, we learn to push these feelings down, to lock them away in the basement of our consciousness. But an emotion is energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. When we suppress it, it doesn't disappear. It is like trying to hold a large beach ball underwater. It takes a tremendous amount of constant, exhausting effort to keep it down. And the moment our attention wavers, the ball shoots up to the surface with even greater force, often at an unexpected or inappropriate moment. Suppressed emotions become knots of tension in our bodies, a tightness in the jaw, a chronic ache in the shoulders, a persistent feeling of anxiety in the stomach. They are the source of so much of our unexplained physical and mental distress. They are unheard messages, knocking ever more loudly on the door of our being. The alternative is not to be completely overwhelmed by our emotions, to let the wave of anger or sorrow crash over us and drown us in its drama. The middle path is to learn how to feel our emotions fully, but skillfully. It is the practice of sitting with a feeling, of allowing it to be present in our awareness, without letting it take over completely. Let us try this now, in a very gentle way. You don't need to conjure up a strong emotion. Simply bring your awareness into your body and notice what feeling is already here. Perhaps it's a subtle restlessness, a faint trace of worry, or even just a sense of tiredness. Whatever is present, see if you can allow it to be here. Now, ask yourself a simple question. Where do I feel this emotion in my body? Don't think about the answer. Feel for it. Is it a tightness in your throat, a hollowness in your chest, a fluttering in your solar plexus, a heaviness in your limbs? Pinpoint its physical location. By doing this, you are already shifting your relationship to it. It is no longer an abstract, terrifying concept like anxiety, but a concrete, manageable physical sensation. Once you have located the sensation, the next step is to bring a kind and curious attention to it. You are not trying to get rid of it. You are not trying to fix it. You are simply getting to know it. What are its qualities? Is it warm or cool? Is it sharp or dull? Is it vibrating or tingling or heavy and still? Approach it like a scientist discovering a new phenomenon, with gentle, non-judgmental curiosity. And now, see if you can breathe with it. Imagine your breath flowing into and around the area of sensation. You are not trying to breathe it away. You are breathing with it, giving it space. This act of breathing with the sensation is a profound act of allowing. It tells this part of yourself, it's okay for you to be here. I am willing to feel this. You are softening the resistance, unclenching the inner fist that has been fighting this feeling for so long. Here we must make a crucial distinction: the difference between the pure physical sensation of an emotion and the mental story we attach to it. The raw sensation is the tightness in the chest. The story is, this tightness is here because my boss was unfair to me, and he always disrespects me, and no one appreciates my work, and I'll probably get fired. The raw sensation is a simple, manageable wave of energy that will rise and fall on its own. The story is a complex mental loop that can keep us trapped in that feeling for hours or even days. The practice is to stay with the raw physical data of the sensation in your body and to let the story go, just as we learn to let the clouds of thought drift by. When you notice your mind starting to spin the narrative, you can gently guide your attention back to the pure feeling in your body. Feeling the raw energy of sadness is a clean, purifying experience that passes. It is getting lost in the story of, I am a sad person that feels heavy and endless. The great 13th century poet Rumi wrote a poem that beautifully expresses this wisdom. He said to imagine that your being is a guest house. Every morning there is a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still, you must treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. This is a radical invitation. It asks us to see our emotions not as problems to be solved, but as sacred messengers. Each feeling that arrives at our door carries a gift of information. Anger may be a messenger telling us that a boundary has been violated. Fear may be a messenger advising us to pay attention and proceed with caution. Sadness may be a messenger honoring something we have lost and cherished. Joy is a messenger showing us what truly nourishes our soul. When we slam the door on these messengers, we miss their vital wisdom. When we invite them in, listen patiently to what they have to say and treat them with respect, we can learn from them. And like any good guest, once their message has been delivered and received, they will move on. So, the practice is to become a gracious host. When a feeling arrives, you meet it at the door. You locate it in the body. You investigate its qualities with gentle curiosity. You breathe with it, giving it space. You listen for its message, without getting lost in its story. And you trust that it is simply energy in motion, a temporary visitor who, if allowed to be felt, will naturally flow through you, perhaps leaving you clearer and wiser for its visit. This courageous practice of welcoming all of our inner guests, especially the difficult ones, requires a foundational attitude. It requires a heart that is gentle, non-judgmental, and forgiving towards oneself. To truly make friends with our feelings, we must first learn how to be a good friend to ourselves. This is the path of self-compassion. We have opened the door to the guests of our heart, learning to sit with the energy of our emotions rather than fighting or fleeing from them. To be such a gracious and courageous host to the joy, the sorrow, and the fear that visit us, we must cultivate a foundational quality, an inner atmosphere of warmth and safety. This atmosphere is created by the gentle rain of compassion. But so often, while we may find it easy to offer this compassion to a friend in need, we withhold it from the one person who is always with us, ourselves. We now turn to the most healing practice of all, the art of offering the nectar of compassion to our own hearts. Self-compassion is a term that is often misunderstood. Many of us have been taught to believe that being kind to ourselves is a form of weakness, self-pity, or selfish indulgence. So let us first be clear about what it is not. Self-compassion is not self-pity. Self-pity narrows our world, trapping us in a story of poor me, making us feel isolated and alone in our misery. Self-compassion, in contrast, sees our pain clearly and connects us to the wider human experience, reminding us that suffering is a shared part of life. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence. Self-indulgence is chasing short-term pleasure to avoid long-term pain, like eating an entire tub of ice cream when we feel sad. Self-compassion is asking what is truly nourishing for our well-being in the long run. It is the wisdom that might guide us to go for a gentle walk, to talk with a friend, or to simply allow the sadness to be felt and held with kindness. And most importantly, self-compassion is not weakness. We often carry a mistaken belief that harsh self-criticism is the only thing that motivates us, the only thing that keeps us from becoming lazy and complacent. But self-criticism is a terrible motivator. It operates from a place of fear, and it is the source of our anxiety and our resistance to change. Self-compassion, on the other hand, is a source of immense strength and resilience. It creates the inner safety that allows us to look at our mistakes without shame, to learn from them, and to find the courage to try again. True self-compassion has three essential ingredients. The first is self-kindness. This is the simple act of being warm and understanding toward ourselves when we are suffering, failing, or feeling inadequate, rather than punishing ourselves with criticism. It is learning to treat ourselves with the same care and concern that we would show to a dear friend. The second ingredient is a sense of common humanity. This is the profound recognition that everyone suffers. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone feels inadequate at times. This is not something that is wrong with you. It is simply part of the human condition. When we are stuck in self-criticism, we feel strangely alone, as if we are the only one who has ever failed in this way. Common humanity opens the door of our lonely prison cell and allows us to see a whole world of people who understand what we are going through. Our personal suffering becomes part of the larger tapestry of human experience. The third ingredient is mindfulness. This is the balanced awareness that we have been practicing. It is the ability to observe our thoughts and feelings as they are, without suppressing them, but also without exaggerating them or getting lost in their dramatic stories. Mindfulness allows us to hold our pain in a spacious awareness, giving us the clarity to respond with kindness and wisdom. Why is it that we can so easily offer these gifts to others, but find it so difficult to offer them to ourselves? We can see a friend spill a drink and say, "Don't worry, it's just a small thing." Yet when we do it, our inner voice might hiss, "You are so clumsy, you can't do anything right." This harsh inner critic is a deeply ingrained habit, a voice we have internalized from our culture, our upbringing, a mistaken belief that we must be hard on ourselves to be good. But this inner warfare is the source of our deepest exhaustion. Self-compassion is the declaration of a peace treaty with ourselves. It is the choice to lay down our arms and to finally come home. There is a powerful story from the life of the Buddha that shines a light on the sacredness of this practice. In one monastery, a monk had contracted a terrible disease. His body was covered in weeping sores. He was incontinent, and the smell was so foul that none of the other monks would go near him. They left him utterly alone to suffer in his own filth, believing his sickness was a result of his own bad karma. When the Buddha heard of the monk's plight, he went directly to the hut where the man lay suffering. He did not recoil in disgust. With his own hands, the Buddha began to gently wash the monk's wounded body. He cleaned the soiled bedding and replaced his dirty robes with clean ones. As he tended to the sick monk with infinite tenderness, he spoke to him and comforted him. Later, the Buddha gathered all the other monks and taught them a profound lesson. He said, "Monks, you have no mother or father here to care for you. If you do not care for one another, who else will? Know this, whoever looks after the sick and the suffering is looking after me." This story is a powerful metaphor for our own inner world. Each of us has a sick monk inside. We all have parts of ourselves that we deem unworthy, shameful, or broken. It is the part that feels like a failure, the part that carries our deepest insecurities, the part that is wounded by past trauma. Our usual tendency is to do what the monks did, to turn away in disgust, to ignore this part of ourselves, or lock it away, hoping it will disappear. The practice of self-compassion is the practice of becoming the Buddha to our own suffering. It is the courageous and tender act of turning towards the parts of ourselves that are in pain. It is about gently washing the wounds of our own shame, changing the soiled robes of our self-criticism, and speaking to our own fear with a voice of unwavering kindness. This is not merely a psychological technique. It is a sacred act of healing, of making ourselves whole. Let us try a simple practice to bring this compassion directly into our bodies. I invite you now to place a hand gently over your heart, or perhaps both hands. Just feel the physical warmth of your own touch, the gentle pressure. This simple gesture is a powerful signal to the body's nervous system, a signal of care and comfort. Now, allow yourself to call to mind something that is difficult for you right now, a small struggle or stress. Don't choose something overwhelming, just a point of gentle discomfort. As you hold this difficulty in your awareness, feel the warmth of your hand on your chest. And now, silently, you can offer yourself some words of compassion. You might try these phrases, rooted in the 3 components we explored. First, mindfulness. This is a moment of suffering, just acknowledging the truth of the pain. Then, common humanity. Suffering is a part of life. I am not alone. Connecting yourself to others. And finally, self-kindness. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion that I need. You can also use any words that feel authentic to you, words you would offer a friend. It's okay. I'm here for you. You can get through this. Just breathe and let these words of kindness sink into your being, softening the hard edges of your pain. When we create this warm, compassionate inner environment, we stop wasting so much energy fighting ourselves. We create the safety needed for true healing to begin. Self-compassion melts the ice of self-judgment, allowing the frozen parts of our hearts to thaw and flow once more. And it is precisely this inner safety, this feeling of being on our own side, that gives us the strength and the courage to finally turn and face one of the heaviest burdens of all, the tangled, unresolved stories of our past. With the warmth of self-compassion as our gentle guide, we now have the courage to approach one of the most cluttered and haunted rooms in the house of our minds, the room of the past. For many of us, this room is kept locked. For others, we are trapped inside it, spending our days endlessly dusting the old furniture of our regrets and staring at the faded portraits of our grievances. We believe that who we are today is defined by the unchangeable events of yesterday. We drive our lives forward while looking exclusively in the rearview mirror, wondering why we keep stumbling. But the path to peace requires us to understand the true nature of this room. The past is not a solid place. It is a story, and it is a story that we have the power to stop telling. The first and most liberating realization is that the past has no power to hurt you now. The event that caused you pain is over. It exists only as an echo, a memory trace in the mind. The only way that echo can cause pain today is if we amplify it through our present moment thinking. When we ruminate on an old hurt, we are not just remembering it, we are reliving it. Our bodies react as if the event is happening all over again. The heart rate increases, stress hormones are released, and the nervous system enters a state of alarm. We are taking the cold ashes of a long extinguished fire and willingly putting our hands into them, wondering why we feel burned. The pain is not coming from the past, it is coming from our present moment mental activity. This truth is the key that can unlock the door of that dusty room. Because while we cannot change the past, we can absolutely change our relationship to it in the present. A great deal of the weight of the past comes from the heavy chains of resentment and the refusal to forgive. When someone has wronged us, we feel justified in our anger. We hold onto our grievance like a precious, righteous treasure. But who is truly burdened by this treasure? There is a saying that holding onto resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. The anger, the bitterness, the endless replaying of the injustice, these things poison our own hearts, not theirs. They bind us to the very person and event we wish to be free from. Forgiveness, then, is often deeply misunderstood. It is not an act of condoning what happened. It is not saying that the hurtful behavior was acceptable. It does not require an apology or any change from the other person. Forgiveness is not for them. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. It is the courageous act of deciding that you will no longer allow a past event to consume your present energy. It is the scissor that cuts the heavy chain. It is the ultimate act of self-love, a declaration that your own peace is more important than your attachment to being right. There is a classic Zen story that speaks to the necessity of letting go of what we carry. A brilliant and highly respected university professor, a man famous for his knowledge, traveled to visit a reclusive Zen master to learn about Zen. Upon being welcomed, the professor immediately began to talk. He spoke of all the books he had read, the complex philosophical theories he understood, and the ways in which his own ideas aligned with or diverged from Buddhist doctrine. He was lecturing, not listening, his mind overflowing with his own brilliance. The Zen master listened patiently for some time, then quietly began to prepare tea. He placed a beautiful porcelain cup in front of the professor and began to pour. He filled the cup to the brim, but then he did not stop. The hot tea overflowed, spilling onto the saucer, then onto the table, cascading onto the floor. The professor, shocked out of his monologue, jumped up and shouted, "Stop! What are you doing? The cup is already full. No more can go in." The Zen master calmly stopped pouring, looked into the professor's eyes, and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I possibly show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" Our minds are so often like this full teacup. They are filled to the brim with the past, filled with old hurts, established beliefs about ourselves, rigid narratives about how life has treated us, and a fixed identity based on yesterday's experiences. We cling to all of it, believing this collection of stories is me, and because the cup is so full, there is no room for anything new to enter. There is no space for peace. There is no room for healing. There is no space for the simple joy of the present moment. The practice of letting go of the past is the practice of emptying your cup. It is looking at the stories we tell ourselves and asking, is this still true? Does this story still serve me? Or is it just a well-worn habit? Take a moment to become aware of the stories you tell yourself about your past. Perhaps it is a story of victimhood. I had a difficult childhood. and therefore I will always struggle with relationships. Or a story of failure. I made a terrible mistake in my career, so I am not meant to be successful. Or a story of limitation. I've never been good at sports, so I am not an athletic person. These stories feel so solid, so true, but they are not you. They are mental habits. The practice is to begin to see them as stories, not as facts set in stone. When you see the story as a story, it begins to lose its power. You can start to question it. Is it possible that you can have healthy relationships despite your childhood? Is it possible that your past mistake was a lesson, not a life sentence? You begin to see that you are not the character in the story. You are the author, and you can choose to write a new chapter right now. This is the art of learning from the past without living in it. A wise person who touches a hot stove learns a valuable lesson. Don't touch the hot stove. They don't spend the rest of their lives building their identity around the burn. They don't introduce themselves as a person who was once burned. They take the wisdom from the experience and they let the drama of the experience go. The past is an excellent teacher, but it is a terrible master. We can honor its lessons. We can be grateful for how they have shaped us, but we do not have to set up permanent residence in its domain. We can choose to visit for the lesson and then come home to the present. By meeting our past with the warmth of self-compassion, by understanding the true nature of forgiveness, and by recognizing the prison of our own stories, we can begin the liberating work of emptying our cup. We can gently release the ghosts of yesterday, not by fighting them, but by simply withdrawing our attention and our belief from them. As we set down this immense weight, we may feel a newfound lightness, but the mind is clever, and it has another favorite realm for creating suffering. Just as we can be chained by what has already happened, we can be equally paralyzed by what has not yet come to pass. And so, with our cup a little emptier, we now turn our gaze from the past to the future, to address the endless, buzzing phantom of worry. Having gently emptied our cup of the stories and sorrows of the past, we may notice a newfound sense of space within us. But the mind is a restless creature, and if it is not dwelling in the ghosts of yesterday, its other favorite pastime is to project itself into the phantoms of tomorrow. We now turn our attention to this other great source of our dis-ease, the persistent, buzzing, and utterly exhausting habit of worry. If the past is a room we get locked inside, the future is a thick, impenetrable fog that we frantically try to navigate with a non-existent map. We believe that if we can just think hard enough, plan for every possible outcome, and anticipate every potential danger, we can make ourselves safe. But this effort is the very definition of anxiety. Let us be very clear about what worry is. Worry is the futile attempt to solve a problem that does not yet exist, using information that you do not have. It is a mental simulation of a negative outcome. In the cinema of your mind, you are the writer, director, and star of 1,000 horror films about your own future. You create a vivid movie about failing the interview, about the relationship ending, about getting sick, and then you react with real physical fear and anxiety to this work of your own fiction. Your body does not know the difference between a real threat and a vividly imagined one. So when you worry, you are flooding your system with stress hormones, putting your nervous system on high alert for a danger that exists only in your thoughts. It is a form of self-inflicted torment, a misguided attempt of the mind to protect you that ends up causing the very suffering you are trying to avoid. Here, it is essential to distinguish between the wisdom of planning and the madness of worry. They may seem similar, but they are worlds apart. Wise planning is an action taken in the present moment. It looks at the known facts, assesses the situation calmly, and asks, what is one skillful step I can take right now to move in a positive direction? Wise planning is productive. It might sound like, I have a presentation next week, so I will spend 1 hour today researching the topic. Once that hour is complete, the mind can rest. a concrete action has been taken. Obsessive worrying, on the other hand, lives entirely in the imaginary future. It ignores the facts of the present and instead gets lost in a repetitive loop of negative what-ifs. It sounds like, what if they don't like my presentation? What if I forget my words? What if they ask a question I can't answer? What if I make a fool of myself? This loop leads to no skillful action, only to a spiral of increasing anxiety. You cannot solve these problems because they are not real problems. They are phantoms. Wise planning is a calm and focused use of our intelligence. Worry is the mind spinning its wheels in the mud of fear. Imagine a tightrope walker poised to cross a deep chasm between two cliffs. The destination on the far cliff is the future. The chasm below represents all the things that could go wrong, all the what-ifs. The tightrope walker takes his first step onto the rope. What happens if he focuses all his attention on the distant destination? He will be overwhelmed by how far he has to go. His body will tense up and he will lose his balance. What happens if he stares down into the chasm, contemplating the terrifying fall? He will be paralyzed by fear, unable to move, and will certainly fall. The only way for the tightrope walker to succeed is to bring his entire undivided attention to the present moment. His focus must be on the feeling of the rope beneath his feet right now. His awareness must be on the subtle shifts in his own balance in this very second. His power lies not in being at the destination, but in the quality of the single step he is taking right now. His entire journey is nothing more than a series of these present moment steps. Your life is this tightrope. Worrying about the destination or fearing the fall will only cause you to stumble. Your peace, your power, and your grace are found in bringing your full attention to the step you are taking today. The antidote to worry, then, is not to have a perfect plan that accounts for every possibility. The antidote is trust. Specifically, it is trust in your future self. You do not need to solve next week's problems today, because you, the person you are right now, will not be there. Your future self will be there. And you have to trust that the person you will be next week with, the benefit of a week's more experience and information, will have the resources, the creativity, and the resilience to handle whatever arises. Think of all the challenges you have faced in your life up to this point. You met them, you handled them, you survived them all, you have a perfect track record. Worry is a fundamental distrust in your own capacity to meet the moments of your life as they come. Letting go of worry is a profound act of faith in your own unfolding wisdom. We can cultivate this trust through a simple practice. When you notice the mind being hijacked by a worry about the future, you can first simply acknowledge it without judgment. The mind is worrying about money. Then you can ask the question of wise planning. Is there any skillful, concrete action I can take about this right now, in this present moment? If the answer is yes, then by all means, take that action. That is wisdom. But if the answer is no, if there is nothing you can do about it right now, then you must recognize the thought for what it is. Simply worry, a phantom, a useless spinning of the wheels. And at that point, you can gently, in your own mind, give the problem back to the future. You can say to yourself, I trust my future self to handle this when the time comes. This problem does not belong to the present moment. And with that, you can consciously release it and gently guide your attention back to your anchor, back to the feeling of your breath, back to the solid ground of the here and now. You can do this as many times as needed, with infinite patience. We have now seen how the mind creates suffering by clinging to the illusions of the past and the future. We have practiced emptying our cup of yesterday's stories and letting go of our frantic need to map out tomorrow's journey. This process of letting go of who we were and who we think we need to become brings us face to face with the very architect of these illusions. It reveals the storyteller, the warrior, the entity at the center of all this drama, the sense of a separate, solid self. To find an even deeper freedom, we must now turn our gentle, curious attention toward this mysterious character we call me. We have walked through the haunted rooms of the past and stood at the edge of the misty shores of the future, learning to release our grip on both. This practice of letting go of who we were and who we might become brings us face to face with the creator of these stories, the central character in every drama, the persistent sense of I. This is the self that feels proud, the self that gets hurt, the self that worries, the self that takes everything so very personally. In the language of psychology and spirituality, this constructed identity is often called the ego. Our task now is not to destroy this ego, but to understand it, to see it clearly for what it is, and in doing so, to free ourselves from its tyrannical rule. What is this ego? It is not your true nature. It is a mental construct, a temporary identity cobbled together from various bits and pieces throughout your life. It is built from your memories, both good and bad. It is a collage of your beliefs, your opinions, and your judgments. It identifies with your social roles. I am a parent, I am a teacher, I am an artist. It attaches itself to your possessions, your accomplishments, and even your body, saying, "This is mine." All these fragments are then woven together into a continuous narrative, a story of me, that the ego spends its entire existence trying to protect, promote, and defend. It feels incredibly real, just as a character in a movie feels real to the audience. But it is a role you are playing, not who you truly are. Because the ego is a construct, a fragile mask rather than our authentic being, it lives in a state of constant insecurity and fear. It needs to perpetually validate its own existence. This is the root of so much of our human conflict. The ego needs to be right, which is why we argue so passionately over trivial things. The ego needs to feel superior, which gives rise to judgment, gossip, and jealousy. The ego needs to be seen as good, which leads to boasting and the desperate seeking of approval. And because it is so fragile, it feels personally attacked by the smallest things. A piece of criticism is not just feedback. It is a threat to the ego's very survival. A differing opinion is not just a different perspective. It is a challenge to the ego's worldview. The fundamental problem of the ego is that it takes everything personally. It lives at the center of a self-created drama, convinced it is the star of the show. There is a profound and ancient story from the Taoist sage Zhuangzi that perfectly illuminates the nature of the ego and the path to freedom from it. A man was rowing his boat across a river on a misty morning. He was enjoying the peace and the solitude, feeling at one with the gentle current. Suddenly, with a loud thud, another boat crashed into his, jolting him from his reverie. The man's peace was shattered. His ego flared up instantly. He began to shout insults and curses at the other boat. "You idiot! Watch where you're going. Are you blind?" His face grew red with rage. His heart pounded with indignation, and he began to row furiously towards the other boat, ready to give its careless owner a piece of his mind. As he got closer, still shouting, he peered through the thinning mist to finally confront the fool who had wronged him. But as he looked into the other boat, he saw that there was no one there. It was an empty boat that had simply broken loose from its moorings upstream and was drifting aimlessly down the river. In that single moment of recognition, all of his anger vanished. It evaporated like the morning mist. How can you be angry at an empty boat? His rage was not caused by the physical event of being bumped. His rage was entirely created by and dependent upon his assumption that there was another person, another ego, in the other boat who had personally and intentionally slighted him. The moment he saw the boat was empty, the personal element disappeared, and with it, the anger. This story is a powerful meditation for our daily lives. How many of the boats that bump into us each day are actually empty? The person who cuts you off in traffic, are they personally attacking you? Or are they just lost in their own world of stress, late for an appointment, an empty boat drifting in their own fog? The colleague who makes a curt remark, are they trying to undermine you? Or are they perhaps having a terrible day, struggling with a sick child at home, an empty boat carrying its own unseen cargo of pain? When we are living from the ego, every bump feels personal. We are constantly ready for a fight. Our inner world is a sea of perpetual conflict. But when we can learn to pause, to breathe, and to consider that we may have just been bumped by an empty boat, the entire emotional landscape changes. We don't have to react. We don't have to take the bait. We are freed from the exhausting burden of taking everything so personally. This is the difference between acting from ego and acting from awareness. When you act from ego, you are the man shouting at the boat. Your reactions are automatic, defensive, and rooted in the need to protect your fragile sense of self. When you act from awareness, you are able to see the bigger picture. You see the empty boat for what it is. You can still take skillful action. You can move your own boat out of the way, but you do so with clarity and calm, not with the blinding rage of a wounded ego. The practice, then, is to become a gentle observer of your own ego. The goal is not to kill it, for it serves a function in navigating the world. The goal is simply to see it, to recognize it when it shows up, and to not mistake it for who you really are. Notice it when it arises. Notice the urge to boast about an accomplishment. Notice the flash of jealousy when someone else succeeds. Notice the powerful wave of defensiveness when you receive criticism. Notice the feeling of righteous indignation when your views are challenged. In those moments, you don't need to judge yourself. You can just silently note, there is the ego, feeling threatened, or there is the ego, wanting to be right. This simple, non-judgmental act of seeing is transformative. It creates a space between you, the calm awareness, and the reactive mechanism of the ego. In that space, you have a choice. When we begin to see through the illusion of the ego, when we realize that this solid, separate me we have worked so hard to defend is actually more like a transparent, shifting pattern of thoughts and conditioning, the walls of our personal prison begin to dissolve. We take life less seriously and far less personally. And as these walls of the separate self become transparent, we begin to perceive a truth that was previously hidden from view. We begin to see that the very idea of a truly separate self was an illusion all along, and that in reality, we are deeply, miraculously, and inextricably connected to everything else. Having seen through the fragile construction of the ego, the separate me that takes everything so personally, we are left with a profound question. If I am not this isolated character, this lonely protagonist in my own story, then what am I? The answer lies in a radical shift of perception, a dissolving of boundaries that the ego has worked so hard to maintain. It is the realization of interconnectedness, the understanding that nothing, absolutely nothing, exists on its own. We are not separate fragments in a disconnected universe. We are part of a single, seamless, and miraculously interwoven whole. Let us explore this through a simple contemplation. Imagine in your mind, or feel in your hands, a single sheet of paper. It seems like a simple, separate object. But let us look more deeply. Where did this paper come from? It came from a tree. So, the tree is in the paper. For the tree to grow, it needed sunlight, so the sun is in the paper. It needed rain, so the clouds and the sky are in the paper. It needed soil to nourish its roots, so the earth is in the paper. The tree was cut down by a logger. The logger needed to eat breakfast to have the strength to do his work. So the wheat that made his bread and the farmer who grew the wheat are also in this sheet of paper. The logger's parents who brought him into this world are in the paper. The paper was made at a mill which used electricity, perhaps generated by a river. So the river is here too. And the person who designed the paper machine, their thoughts and ideas are here. If we were to remove any one of these elements, if we took away the sun, or the cloud, or the logger, or the earth, this sheet of paper could not exist. It is made up entirely of what we might call non-paper elements. It has no separate, independent self. Its entire existence is dependent on everything else in the universe. It inter-is with all that is. Now turn this gentle gaze upon yourself. You too are like this sheet of paper. You are not a separate, self-contained entity. Look at the food that gives you energy. It contains the sun, the earth, the rain, the farmer. They are becoming you. Feel the air that fills your lungs with every breath. You are sharing this air with the trees, the plants, and every other living being on this planet. It flows into you and out of you, connecting you intimately with your environment. Think of the ideas and words you use. They came from your parents, your teachers, your friends, from books you have read and cultures you have experienced. Your very consciousness has been shaped by countless beings. If you were to remove all these non-you elements, what would be left? You would find that you too are empty of a separate self. Your being is a convergence of the entire universe. Understanding this is the perfect antidote to the painful illusion of loneliness. The ego, with its strong sense of being a separate I, is what feels isolated. It feels like a solitary fragment adrift in a vast and indifferent cosmos. But the wisdom of interconnectedness reveals that this separation is a trick of the mind. You are not a fragment. You are a wave in the ocean of being. A wave might rise up and have a distinct form for a moment, believing itself to be separate from all the other waves. But its fundamental nature is water, inseparable from the whole ocean. You are never, ever truly alone. You contain the multitudes. The entire universe has conspired to bring you into being, right here, right now. In ancient Buddhist cosmology, there is a beautiful and sublime image that captures this truth. It is called Indra's net. Imagine a vast, cosmic net that stretches out infinitely in all directions. At every single intersection of this net, at every knot, there hangs a single, brilliant, perfectly polished jewel. Each jewel is unique, yet each one is intimately connected to all the others. And here is the miracle. If you look closely at the surface of any one of these jewels, you will see reflected in it every other jewel in the entire infinite net. And within the reflection of each jewel, you will find the reflections of all the other jewels, and so on forever. Everything contains everything else. But the image goes even further. When a single jewel in this cosmic web is touched, or polished, or even slightly dimmed, a tremor runs through the entire net. Every other jewel instantly and simultaneously reflects that change. A shift in one is a shift in all. We are these jewels in Indra's net. You are a jewel, and so am I, and so is every person, every animal, every tree, every star. Your very being reflects all of existence, and all of existence is reflected in you. This means that your actions, your thoughts, your state of being have a significance that ripples out far beyond your personal sphere. An act of kindness is not just a transaction between two people. It sends a vibration of light throughout the entire net. A word of anger or cruelty also sends its own vibration, dimming the light in every other jewel. This understanding transforms our lives from a private struggle into an act of sacred participation. We realize that our own healing contributes to the healing of the whole. Our own peace contributes to the peace of the world. You can practice seeing this interconnectedness everywhere. When you look at a flower, see beyond its form and color. See the sunlight, the soil, and the rain that are present within it. When you drink a glass of water, feel your connection to the rivers, the oceans, and the clouds. When you look at another person, especially someone you find difficult, practice seeing the elements you share. See their humanity. Know that they too were born of a mother. that they too need nourishment, that they too have known joy and sorrow. See the sun and the earth within them, just as they are within you. This practice dissolves the hard walls of separation that the ego builds and replaces them with bridges of empathy and understanding. When we truly begin to perceive the world in this way, as a single interwoven tapestry, something remarkable happens. The sense of self shifts from a noun to a verb. We are not a thing, we are a happening. We are not an isolated fragment, but an expression of the whole. And when we contemplate the sheer miracle of our own existence, that the sun, the moon, the stars, the ancient earth, our ancestors, and all of creation have converged to create this very moment, this very breath, this very flicker of awareness, the heart cannot help but respond. It responds with a feeling of profound and overwhelming thankfulness. This spontaneous, joyful recognition of the gift of life is the spirit of gratitude. Having awakened to the sublime reality of our interconnectedness, seeing ourselves not as lonely fragments, but as integral jewels in the infinite, shining net of existence, a new feeling can begin to bloom in the heart. When we truly see how the sun, the clouds, the earth, and the efforts of countless beings have all converged to create this very moment, this very breath, the natural response is not one of pride, but one of profound humility and thankfulness. This feeling, this deep and joyful recognition of the unearned gift of life, is the essence of gratitude. Gratitude is not merely the polite act of saying thank you. It is a fundamental shift in perception, a new way of seeing the world. It is the practice of tuning our attention away from the frequency of lack and scarcity, and tuning it instead to the ever-present frequency of abundance and grace. The default setting of the ego mind is one of dissatisfaction. It is a wanting machine, constantly scanning the horizon for the next thing that will supposedly complete it and make it happy. It operates under the timeless illusion of I will be happy when I get the new job, when I find a partner, when I lose the weight, when I can finally go on vacation. This is a game that can never be won, because as soon as one desire is fulfilled, the ego immediately generates another. Gratitude is the revolutionary act of stepping off this exhausting treadmill. It gently breaks the spell of what's next by focusing on the profound beauty of what is. It is the discovery that the wellspring of happiness is not outside of us, in the things we can acquire, but inside of us, in the quality of attention and appreciation we can cultivate. The practice of gratitude begins with the small, the simple, the overlooked. It asks for nothing more than to notice the goodness that is already here. Let us take a moment to do this now. Bring your awareness to your own body, this incredible vessel that has carried you through your entire life. Feel the quiet miracle of your breath flowing in and out, nourishing you without any conscious command. Feel your heart beating steadily in your chest, a faithful drum that has not stopped since before you were born. Be grateful for your senses, for the eyes that can perceive light and color, for the ears that can hear sound, for the skin that can feel warmth and coolness. These are profound gifts. Now, expand your awareness to your immediate surroundings. Feel a sense of gratitude for the simple comfort of the surface you are resting on, for the roof over your head that protects you from the elements, for the simple fact of gravity that holds you safely to the earth. Think of the last meal you ate, or the last glass of water you drank, and feel a sense of thankfulness for the nourishment and for all the hands that brought it to you. Gratitude reveals that our lives, even on difficult days, are built upon a foundation of countless blessings that we have learned to take for granted. There is an old story of a great king who was the wealthiest and most powerful man of his time. He had magnificent palaces, chests overflowing with gold, and armies that were loyal to him. Yet, for all his external wealth, he was deeply unhappy, plagued by a constant sense of unease and dissatisfaction. He summoned his wisest advisors and demanded they find him a cure for his misery. One old sage told him, "Your Majesty, the only cure is to find the happiest man in your kingdom and wear his shirt for a day and a night. His happiness will then surely pass to you." The king thought this was a strange but simple solution and sent his emissaries out on this important quest. They searched everywhere. They went to the richest merchants, but found them consumed with worries about their profits. They went to the most celebrated generals, but found them anxious about their reputations. They sought out the most beautiful courtiers, but found them mired in jealousy and intrigue. They found no one who was truly, deeply happy. Discouraged, the emissaries were returning to the palace late one night when they passed a dirt road and heard the sound of joyful singing. They found a poor beggar, dressed in rags, sitting by the side of the road, gazing at the moon and laughing with pure contentment. His eyes shone with a light they had not seen in any of the wealthy citizens. They knew they had found their man. They rushed to him and explained their quest, telling him the king would give him anything he desired in exchange for his shirt. The beggar roared with laughter. "My good sirs," he said, wiping a tear of mirth from his eye, "I would gladly give my shirt to the good king to ease his suffering, but I am afraid I do not own one." This story teaches us a timeless truth. The king was searching for happiness as an external object, something to be acquired and worn. But the true wealth, the genuine happiness, belonged to the man who had nothing, and therefore had the freedom to appreciate everything. Gratitude is this magical shirt. It is not something you can buy or borrow. It is something you must weave from within, from the threads of your own attention and appreciation. This practice can be extended even to the difficult moments of our lives. This does not mean we should be happy about painful events. It means we can learn to be grateful for the lessons they teach us and the strength they forge within us. Just as a muscle grows stronger only when it meets with resistance, so too do our inner qualities of resilience, patience, and compassion grow only when they are challenged by life's difficulties. When we look back at our hardest times, we often see that they were also times of our greatest growth. We can be grateful for the teacher, even if the lesson was severe. This transforms our past from a source of wounds into a source of wisdom. To build this muscle of gratitude, a simple and powerful practice is to keep a gratitude journal. At the end of each day, take just a few moments to write down 3 to 5 things from your day for which you are grateful. They do not have to be large things. It could be the warmth of the sun on your face, a kind word from a colleague, the taste of your morning coffee, or the simple fact that you woke up today. This simple act begins to retrain your brain. It consciously directs your mind to scan your experience for positives, creating new neural pathways. Over time, you will find yourself naturally noticing the good more often. Your default state will slowly shift from one of complaint and lack to one of appreciation and abundance. When we truly fill our hearts with this spirit of gratitude, when we see our lives not as a struggle for survival but as an incredible gift, a profound shift occurs. A heart that is genuinely full cannot contain all of its goodness. A cup that is overflowing naturally shares its contents with everything around it. This spontaneous overflowing of a grateful heart, this natural impulse to share the goodness we have recognized, is the very essence of generosity. Having filled our hearts with the warm, radiant light of gratitude, we discover a natural and beautiful consequence. A heart that is truly full cannot hoard its treasures. A cup that is overflowing cannot help but to share its contents with the thirsty ground around it. This spontaneous impulse to share the goodness, the joy, and the peace that we have recognized within ourselves is the spirit of generosity. In the ancient language of the Buddha, this practice is called dana. It is not a duty, a transaction, or a strategy for gaining merit. It is the joyful, effortless expression of a grateful and interconnected heart. It is the practice of the open hand. In our modern world, we have come to associate generosity almost exclusively with the giving of money. but its true meaning is far vaster and more accessible than that. You do not need to be wealthy to be a master of generosity. There are infinite ways to give, and many of the most precious gifts cost nothing at all. You can practice giving your time, offering an hour to help a neighbor or a friend without any agenda. You can give your energy, your enthusiasm, your encouragement. One of the most profound gifts we can offer another human being is the gift of our full, undivided attention. In a world of distraction, to truly listen to someone without interrupting, without planning your response, without judging their story is an act of profound generosity. It is to offer them the sanctuary of your presence, telling them with your attention, "You matter. I see you. I hear you." We can practice giving a smile to a stranger, a simple act that can ripple out in unimaginable ways. We can give the benefit of the doubt, choosing to believe in the good intentions of others rather than assuming the worst. We can give the gift of our forgiveness, which, as we have seen, liberates ourselves, but also releases the other person from the prison of our resentment. You can give the gift of your calm. When you are peaceful and centered, your very presence becomes a gift to everyone around you, a silent permission for them to feel at ease as well. Generosity is a quality of the heart, an attitude of openness that finds expression in 1,000 small ways throughout our day. The practice of dana is also a powerful antidote to the ego. The ego is defined by the gravitational pull of I, me, mine. It is contractive. It seeks to accumulate, to possess, to control. It builds walls and counts its treasures. The act of giving is the direct opposite of this. It is expansive. It is a practice of letting go. Every time we give freely, without expecting anything in return, we are loosening the ego's tight-fisted grip. We are challenging its fundamental belief in separation and lack. With each act of generosity, we are affirming the truth of our interconnectedness, the truth that the well-being of others is inseparable from our own. We are demonstrating to ourselves that our true nature is not one of grasping, but one of flowing. There is a deep and often overlooked joy in the act of giving. We are often taught that happiness comes from getting what we want, but a deeper wisdom reveals that a more stable and authentic happiness comes from the joy of giving. When we are focused on getting, we are reinforcing the ego's story of scarcity, the feeling that I am not enough or I do not have enough. But when we give, we tap into a sense of our own inner abundance. We connect with a part of ourselves that is loving, capable, and whole. The simple act of helping another reminds us of our own strength and our own capacity for goodness. This is why it so often feels better to give a thoughtful gift than to receive one. The joy of receiving is temporary. The joy of giving resonates in the heart long after the act is complete. There is a moving story that illustrates the true nature of giving. One day, the Buddha was observing the people as they came to make offerings. Many wealthy merchants, nobles, and princes came forward. They proudly poured bags of gold coins into the offering bowl. They presented rare silks and precious gems, making a great show of their wealth and piety. Then, an old, destitute woman made her way through the crowd. She was frail and dressed in rags. In her hand, she clutched 2 small copper coins. It was all the money she had in the world. With a heart full of sincere devotion, she quietly and humbly dropped her 2 small coins into the great offering bowl, where they were dwarfed by the piles of gold. Later, the Buddha gathered his students and asked them, "Did you see the grand offerings made by the wealthy patrons today?" They all nodded. He then said, "I tell you the truth. Of all the donations made today, the offering from the poor old woman was the most valuable and the most meritorious." His students were astonished. "But Master," they asked, "the rich gave thousands of gold coins, while she gave only 2 tiny copper ones. How can her gift be the greater one?" The Buddha replied, "The wealthy gave from their surplus. Their donations, while large, were but a small fraction of what they possessed. It required little of them. But this woman, she gave everything she had. She held nothing back for herself. Her gift was not one of money, but a total offering of her heart. Therefore, it was the greatest gift of all. This story teaches us that the measure of generosity is not the size of the gift, but the quality of the heart that offers it. A small act done with great love is more powerful than a grand gesture done for show. To purify our own intention, we can practice the art of anonymous giving. Pay for the coffee of the person behind you in line and drive away before they can thank you. Leave a flower on a neighbor's doorstep. Do a kind deed for someone in your family without ever mentioning that it was you. This practice is a direct assault on the ego's need for recognition and praise. It allows us to connect with the pure, unadulterated joy of giving for its own sake, the joy that arises simply from adding to the goodness of the world. When we allow the gratitude in our hearts to overflow into acts of generosity, we are watering the seeds of love within us. We are creating a positive feedback loop. Gratitude leads to giving, which leads to joy, which leads to more gratitude. This generous and open-hearted spirit, when we continue to cultivate it, to broaden its reach beyond just our immediate circle, beyond our friends and family, so that it holds all living beings without exception in its warm embrace, transforms into something even more vast and radiant. It becomes the boundless, unconditional friendliness known as metta, or loving kindness, the subject of our next meditation. Having opened our hands in generosity, we find that the heart wishes to give something even more fundamental than our time or our possessions. It wishes to give the gift of its own goodwill, its unconditional, heartfelt well-wishing for the happiness and safety of all. This is the practice of metta, a word from the ancient Pali language that translates as loving kindness or boundless friendliness. This is not the sentimental, grasping love of romance, nor is it the conditional affection we reserve only for those who please us. Metta is like the light of the sun. The sun shines its warmth down on all things without discrimination, on the beautiful rose and the thorny weed, on the saint and the sinner, on the clear lake and the muddy puddle. It simply gives its light freely and universally. The practice of loving kindness is the practice of cultivating this same sun-like quality in our own hearts. This radical practice begins in a place that may seem surprising, with ourselves. So often, we try to love others while holding a deep-seated resentment or criticism toward ourselves. We try to pour from a cup that is empty. This cannot work. We must learn to offer this warm, friendly acceptance to our own being first. This is not a selfish act. It is a necessary foundation. It is the recognition that, just like every other living being, we too have a deep and fundamental wish to be happy, to be safe, and to be free from suffering. By offering metta to ourselves, we are filling our own well, so that its cool, healing waters may naturally overflow and nourish the world around us. Let us begin this gentle, transformative practice now. You may wish to place a hand over your heart once more, feeling the warmth of your own touch. And now, silently, in the quiet space of your own mind, you can begin to offer these phrases of loving kindness to yourself. Let the words be soft, like a gentle whisper. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Don't worry if you don't feel a great wave of emotion at first. The power is in the gentle repetition, the sincere planting of these seeds of goodwill in the soil of your heart. Simply repeat them, allowing the intention behind the words to slowly permeate your being. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I be truly happy and content. May I be as healthy and strong as it is possible for me to be. May my life be filled with a sense of peace and well-being. Now, let this warm feeling begin to expand. Bring to your mind the image of a dear friend or a loved one, someone for whom you have easy and uncomplicated feelings of affection. It could be a cherished family member, a loyal friend, or even a beloved pet. Picture them clearly in your mind's eye. See them smiling and happy. And now, direct the flow of this loving kindness from your heart to theirs. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Feel this genuine wish for their well-being radiating from you to them, a current of warm, benevolent energy. Next, let the circle of your kindness expand a little further. Bring to mind a neutral person, someone you neither like nor dislike. Perhaps it is the cashier at your local grocery store, the mail carrier, or someone you see on your daily commute. You may not even know their name. Bring their face to your mind and recognize that this person, just like you, wants to be happy and free from suffering. And now, offer them the same gift. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. In this simple act, you are training your heart to break its habit of indifference and to recognize the shared humanity in everyone we meet. And now, we come to the most challenging and transformative stage of this practice. I invite you to bring to mind someone with whom you have difficulty. It is best not to choose the person who has caused you the most pain in your life, but rather someone who causes mild irritation or resentment. As you bring this person to mind, it is natural that feelings of anger or hurt may arise. Just allow them to be there, and see if, even in the midst of those feelings, you can offer these phrases as a gift, primarily to yourself. This is not about condoning their harmful actions. It is about freeing your own heart from the poison of hatred. It is the recognition that people who are truly happy and at peace do not cause suffering to others. So, in wishing for their happiness, you are also wishing for a world with less harm. With as much sincerity as you can muster, you can offer them the same words. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. This is a profound act of inner liberation, cutting the chains of bitterness that bind you to them. Finally, let the boundaries of your heart dissolve completely. Imagine the warm light of loving kindness that has been cultivated in your heart now expanding outwards in all directions. Let it radiate forwards and backwards, to the left and to the right, above and below. Let it touch all beings without any exception. All people, young and old, rich and poor, near and far. All animals, great and small. All beings in the sky, on the land, and in the water. To all beings, known and unknown, friends, strangers and enemies, send this boundless wish. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings live with ease. Rest for a moment in this state of boundless, universal, and unconditional love. This practice of metta is the most direct antidote to the constricting, painful energies of anger, resentment, and ill will. Anger is like a clenched fist. Loving kindness is like an open hand. They cannot coexist in the same heart at the same time. By regularly practicing metta, you are actively rewiring your nervous system, weakening the well-worn pathways of hostility and strengthening the beautiful pathways of kindness and connection. This loving kindness is not a weak or passive sentiment. It is a source of immense power and protection. The stories tell of a time when the Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, attempted to assassinate him. He got the fearsome royal elephant, Nalagiri, drunk on palm wine, turning it into a maddened, raging beast, and then unleashed it onto the narrow street where the Buddha was peacefully walking. The people screamed and ran for their lives as the elephant charged, trumpeting with fury, destroying everything in its path, heading directly for the Buddha. The Buddha's attendant, Ananda, tried to shield him, but the Buddha calmly asked him to step aside. He stood perfectly still, showing no trace of fear. Instead of seeing a monster, he saw a confused and suffering being, and from his heart, he projected a powerful, silent wave of pure loving kindness toward the enraged animal. The elephant, which had been unstoppable, felt this immense energy of unconditional love and acceptance. Its charge began to slow. The fury in its eyes softened into confusion and then into gentleness. It came to a stop just before the Buddha, lowered its great head, and knelt before him, completely pacified, not by force, but by the overwhelming power of a loving heart. Metta is our ultimate shield, for it can disarm the hostility both in others and, most importantly, within ourselves. A heart that is steeped in loving kindness becomes a sanctuary of peace for oneself and for the world. It is the firm, unshakable foundation upon which a truly meaningful life can be built. Yet, this wish for all beings to be happy can feel simplistic or naive when we open our eyes to the vast ocean of suffering that exists in the world. To truly meet this suffering without being drowned by it, our loving kindness needs a courageous companion. This companion is karuna, or compassion, the heart's ability not just to wish for happiness, but to tremble in the face of suffering and to move towards it with the intention to help. Having opened our hearts to the boundless, sun-like warmth of loving kindness, wishing for all beings to be happy, we must now turn to its inseparable twin. For what happens when our open heart encounters not happiness, but suffering? What is the heart's response to pain, to sorrow, to fear? The answer is karuna, the Sanskrit and Pali word for compassion. If loving kindness is the wish for all to find joy, compassion is the heartfelt wish for all to be free from suffering. It is the trembling or quivering of the heart in the presence of pain. It is not a turning away, but a courageous and tender turning toward. It is the gentle rain that falls on a parched and wounded land. It is vital to understand that true compassion is very different from pity. Pity looks down from a position of superiority. It creates distance, reinforcing the idea of me, the healthy one, and you, the suffering one. Pity says, "Oh, you poor thing, I am so glad I am not in your situation." This creates separation. Compassion, on the other hand, arises from a sense of equality and shared humanity. It recognizes that we are all vulnerable to suffering. It says, "I see your pain, and I know what it is to feel pain. We are in this together." Nor is compassion the same as empathic distress, where we become so overwhelmed by another's pain that we drown in it alongside them. This is not helpful. It simply adds one more person to the sum of suffering. True compassion is the union of a tender heart and a wise mind. It is the ability to feel with another while remaining grounded and centered in our own being, so that we may be a source of strength and solace, rather than another victim. Therefore, compassion is not a weakness. It is not a soft, sentimental feeling that renders us helpless. True compassion is a form of courage. It is the strength of the spiritual warrior, the one who dares to keep their heart open in a world that is so often filled with pain. It takes immense courage to turn towards suffering when our every instinct is to recoil, to numb ourselves, or to look away. It is the courage to be present with what is difficult, both in ourselves and in others, without shutting down. In the great Mahayana tradition of Buddhism, the ideal of compassion is embodied in the magnificent figure of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva who hears the cries of the world. The legends say that Avalokiteshvara made a powerful vow that he would not rest, he would not enter final peace, until every single living being was liberated from suffering. As he looked out over the endless realms of existence, he saw the bottomless ocean of pain, the grief, the fear, the anger, the despair, and for a moment his great heart broke. The sheer weight of the world's suffering was so immense that his head shattered into 1,000 pieces. But in that moment of breaking, a miracle occurred. He was not destroyed, he was transformed. He was reborn with 1,000 heads, the better to see and understand all the infinite varieties of suffering, and 1,000 arms, each with an open hand, to offer skillful and appropriate help to all who call out. And in the palm of each hand was a compassionate eye, symbolizing the profound truth that true help must always be guided by wisdom. Avalokiteshvara teaches us that our hearts do not need to break apart in the face of suffering. They can learn to break open, expanding our capacity for love and wise action beyond anything we thought possible. There is a powerful and ancient meditation from the Tibetan tradition that helps us cultivate this courageous heart. It is called Tonglen, which means giving and taking, and it is a practice of spiritual alchemy. To begin, first connect with the fundamental goodness of your own heart. Call to mind the feeling of loving kindness, a sense of warmth, light, and peace. Now, as you breathe out, imagine you are breathing out all of this goodness. Breathe out light, breathe out peace, breathe out relief. Send it to a person you know who is suffering. Imagine it soothing their pain, cooling their fever, calming their fear. Give it all away freely on the out-breath. Then comes the courageous part. As you breathe in, imagine you are breathing in the pain and suffering of that same person. Do not imagine it as a solid thing that will harm you, but rather as a dark, heavy, or hot smoke. Imagine you are willingly taking on this cloud of suffering, drawing it into the center of your own heart. And here is the alchemy. Imagine that your heart is like a boundless, luminous space, filled with the infinite light of loving kindness. As the dark smoke of suffering enters this space, it is instantly touched by the light and transformed. The darkness dissolves, the heat is cooled, the pain is liberated into peace. You then continue this cycle with each breath, breathing out relief and happiness, and breathing in pain and suffering, trusting in your heart's boundless capacity to be a place of transformation. You can start with someone you love, then practice for yourself, and eventually expand this practice to embrace all beings who are suffering in the world. This is not a literal taking on of their pain. It is a powerful training of the heart, teaching it to reverse its usual pattern of grasping for pleasure and pushing away pain. It is training our hearts to be fearless and open in the face of all of life. Of course, this courageous compassion must be balanced with wisdom. If we try to carry the entire weight of the world's suffering on our own shoulders, we will inevitably burn out. This is often called compassion fatigue. We must have compassion for ourselves as well, to know our own limits, to practice good self-care, and to understand that we cannot fix every problem. Our role is to offer the help that we can, to be a loving and supportive presence, and to let go of the outcomes with peace. We are here to plant seeds of kindness, but we are not in control of when or how they will grow. We have seen that loving kindness is the wish for all beings to find happiness, and compassion is the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. They are like two wings of a great bird. With only one wing, the bird can only fly in circles. To soar through the heights, it needs both. But for these two powerful wings to beat with a steady and sustainable rhythm, the bird needs a stable body and a calm, guiding tail. It needs a center of gravity that is not thrown off by the turbulent winds of life. This profound stability, this unshakable peace in the face of life's inevitable ups and downs, is the quality of equanimity, and it is to this calm center that we now turn. We have cultivated the two great wings of the awakened heart: loving kindness, the wish for all beings to be happy, and compassion, the wish for all beings to be free from suffering, to fly gracefully through the unpredictable skies of life. These wings need the support of a stable, centered, and unwavering body. This profound stability, this inner poise that remains unshaken amidst the storms of the world, is the sublime state of equanimity. In the Pali language, it is called upekkha. It is the mind's ability to remain balanced in the face of life's 8 worldly winds. the inevitable tides of pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute. It is the calm center of the spinning wheel. Equanimity is perhaps the most misunderstood of the heart's great virtues. It is often confused with its cold and distant cousins, indifference, apathy, or detachment. But true equanimity is not a cold withdrawal from life. Indifference is a form of aversion, a shutting down of the heart that says, "I don't care." Equanimity, however, is born from a heart that cares so deeply and loves so boundlessly that it is no longer attached to outcomes. It is a warm, spacious, and engaged presence that allows life to unfold as it is, without needing to control it. It is not born of a hardened heart, but of a heart made wise by a deep understanding of the nature of reality. This mountain-like stability does not come from sheer willpower or gritting our teeth against life's difficulties. It arises naturally from the soil of wisdom. It is rooted in our understanding of impermanence. Because we know deep in our bones that pleasant experiences will pass, we do not desperately cling to them. Because we know that painful experiences will also pass, we do not furiously resist them. We can experience the full spectrum of life with more grace and less reactivity. Equanimity is also rooted in a deep understanding of cause and effect. We begin to see that the actions of others, their praise and their blame, arise from their own complex web of conditions, their own happiness and their own suffering. When someone praises us, it is their condition speaking. When someone criticizes us, it is also their condition speaking. We learn not to take it so personally. We see their words as empty boats, and this frees us from being tossed about by their currents. Imagine a great, majestic mountain. Its base is rooted deep in the core of the earth, and its peak soars into the sky. All kinds of weather assail this mountain. The fierce winds of blame and criticism howl against its slopes. The torrential rains of loss and sorrow fall upon its granite face. The scorching sun of praise and fame beats down upon it. Dark clouds of confusion and despair gather around its summit. Yet through it all, the mountain remains utterly still, stable, and unmoved. It does not tremble in the wind or shrink from the rain. It does not become arrogant under the sun or depressed by the clouds. It simply allows the weather of the world to happen, remaining grounded in its own immense, silent, and dignified being. A mind trained in wisdom can develop this same unshakable quality. We can learn to feel the winds of praise and blame without being knocked off our center. We can experience the changing weather of our own emotional life while remaining rooted in the vast, peaceful ground of our awareness. We can practice cultivating this balance in the laboratory of our daily lives. Every moment offers an opportunity. When you experience something pleasant, a delicious taste, a beautiful piece of music, a word of praise, notice the mind's immediate reaction. Notice the subtle grasping, the thought of "I want more of this," the fear that it will end. The practice of equanimity is to enjoy the pleasant experience fully, to receive it as a gift, but without the clinging. You can savor it while knowing, this too shall pass. And that is what makes it precious. Likewise, when you experience something unpleasant, a physical pain, a frustrating delay, a harsh word, notice the mind's reaction of aversion. Notice the tensing in the body, the mental pushback, the story of "I don't want this." The practice is to be with the unpleasant sensation, with as much softness and allowing as you can muster, knowing that it too is impermanent. Equanimity is the spacious, calm awareness that can hold both the grasping for pleasure and the aversion to pain without being hijacked by either. It is the still point, the peaceful fulcrum upon which the seesaw of life can gently rock back and forth. Equanimity is the crown jewel of the four sublime states, for it is the quality that holds the others in perfect balance. Loving kindness, without the wisdom of equanimity, can easily curdle into attachment and conditional love. We become happy only when our loved ones are happy, and we suffer when they suffer in a way that is not helpful. Compassion, without the balance of equanimity, can lead to burnout, despair, and what we call idiot compassion, where we become so overwhelmed that we lose our ability to help effectively. Even sympathetic joy, the practice of rejoicing in the good fortune of others, can become a kind of restless excitement without the grounding force of equanimity. Equanimity is the wise, spacious container that allows love, compassion, and joy to be boundless, sustainable, and truly beneficial for all. It is the mature heart that has seen it all and loves it all, without needing any of it to be different than it is. With the warmth of loving kindness, the courage of compassion, and the profound stability of equanimity, our hearts have found a new center of gravity. We are no longer so easily thrown off balance by the inevitable changes of life. We are more like the great mountain, offering a silent, steady presence to the world. This inner stillness allows us to perceive reality with a newfound clarity, free from the distortions of our own reactivity. With this mountain-like peace, we are no longer afraid of silence or emptiness. We can now turn our attention towards the quiet spaces between the noise, not as a void to be feared or a nothingness to be filled, but as a rich and resonant fullness, a space pregnant with a music all its own. Having cultivated the great mountain of equanimity within our hearts, we find ourselves in a new landscape. We are no longer so easily swayed by the winds of the world. We are stable, we are centered, and we are calm. This inner stillness gives us the courage to face something that our modern world has taught us to fear more than almost anything else: silence. Our lives are saturated with noise. From the moment we wake to the moment we fall into an exhausted sleep, we are surrounded by a symphony of distraction. The external noise of traffic, notifications, televisions, and endless chatter is matched and often surpassed by the internal noise of our own restless minds. We have become addicted to stimulation, terrified of what we might find in the quiet spaces between things. We use noise as a buffer, a shield to protect us from a direct encounter with ourselves. Why do we fear silence so much? Because when the external noise ceases, the internal noise becomes deafening. When we finally stop running, we come face to face with everything we have been running from: our anxieties, our regrets, our loneliness, our unfulfilled longings. Silence can feel like a vast, empty void, and the ego, which defines itself by doing and thinking and having, is terrified of this emptiness. It feels like a kind of death, and so our instinct is to immediately fill the space. We reach for our phone, we turn on a podcast, we start a mental to-do list anything to avoid the profound discomfort of simply being still, of simply being present with what is. But this fear is based on a profound misunderstanding of what silence truly is. We have come to think of silence as a negative, as a lack or an absence of sound. But true silence, the silence that is a source of deep peace, is not an absence at all. It is a presence. It is the presence of a vast, receptive awareness. It is the silent, still canvas upon which all the sounds and thoughts of our lives are painted. Without the canvas, there could be no painting. Silence is the background of being that allows all experience to happen. It is the deep, calm, mysterious water of the ocean that lies beneath the chaotic waves on the surface. We have spent our lives being tossed about by the waves, forgetting that our true nature is the silent, unshakable depth. Silence is not empty. It is the womb of creation, the rich, fertile soil from which all true insight, creativity, and wisdom can grow. Think for a moment of a beautiful piece of music, a melody that has touched your heart. Now, imagine what that music would sound like if all the pauses, all the rests between the notes were removed. Imagine all the notes crashing into one another in a frantic, unbroken stream of sound. The melody would be lost, the rhythm would disappear. The beauty would be replaced by a meaningless, jarring chaos. It is precisely the silence between the notes that gives the music its meaning, its emotion, and its power. The pauses allow each note to resonate, to be heard, to have its own life. The space is what creates the art. Our lives are like this piece of music. So often we live as if the goal is to play as many notes as possible, as quickly as possible. We rush from doing to doing, from thinking to thinking, with no space in between. We have forgotten the melody of our own lives. We have forgotten the importance of the pause. Silence is the rest in our personal symphony. It is the space that allows us to make sense of all the notes, to feel the rhythm of our own days, and to discover the unique and beautiful melody of our own being. Without cultivating silence, our lives become like that chaotic wall of sound, a source of stress, burnout, and profound disconnection. When we finally gather the courage to embrace silence, to sit in it and allow it to hold us, we find that it is not a void after all. We find that when the shouting of the ego and the constant chatter of the world finally begin to subside, we can hear something else. We can begin to hear the much softer, deeper whispers of our own hearts. We connect with our intuition. We remember our deepest values, the things that truly matter to us beneath all the superficial goals. We find a clarity and a sense of direction that is impossible to access amidst the clamor of constant activity. It is in the silence that we come home to ourselves. The wonderful news is that we can begin to invite this healing silence into our lives in very simple ways. It does not require a retreat to a remote monastery. You can practice by intentionally creating small pockets of stillness in your day. Perhaps you can choose to drive to work without the radio on, simply observing the world around you. You could decide to turn off your phone and all other screens for just 30 minutes before you go to sleep, allowing your nervous system to unwind. You could practice the radical act of doing nothing for 5 minutes. Not meditating, not trying to be mindful, not problem-solving, simply sitting in a chair and giving yourself permission to be still and silent without any agenda at all. You can even practice in your conversations by learning to be comfortable with the pauses, by not immediately rushing to fill every moment of quiet, allowing for something deeper and more truthful to emerge between you and the other person. As we learn to befriend silence, we discover that it is not empty, but is in fact filled with a deep, simple, and profound sense of peace. It is a contentment that does not depend on any external stimulation, any achievement, or any praise. It is a peace that is inherent to our own being, a peace that was here all along, just waiting for us to get quiet enough to notice it. This discovery that peace and contentment are our natural state when we stop stirring things up leads us to a crucial and life-altering insight. It shows us that happiness may not be what we thought it was. It may not be a prize to be won at the end of a long and frantic chase. It may be something that is revealed only when the chase itself finally comes to an end. Having rested in the profound peace of silence, we uncover a truth that stands in stark contrast to the entire project of our lives. We discover a contentment that is not dependent on anything external. This peace was not achieved. It was not won. It was not purchased. It was simply revealed when we stopped the frantic activity of our minds. This revelation invites us to look honestly at the great lifelong quest that consumes so much of our energy, the search for happiness. From our earliest days, we are taught that happiness is a treasure to be found somewhere out there. It is a destination we must strive to reach, a prize we must earn. We are like children chasing a rainbow, convinced that if we can just get to the next hill, we will be able to touch its vibrant colors and claim its pot of gold. But the rainbow, by its very nature, recedes with every step we take. Our lives are governed by the silent, relentless logic of this chase. We operate on a deeply ingrained formula. If only I could get X, then I would be happy. X might be a new job, a bigger house, a romantic partner, a higher salary, or a more attractive body. We pour our life's energy into pursuing X, believing it holds the key to our fulfillment. And then, sometimes, we get it. For a moment, there is a thrill, a sense of satisfaction, a brief high. The new car smells wonderful. The promotion feels validating. But then, something strange happens. The mind adapts. The new car just becomes the car that gets us to work. The new job just becomes the job, with its own set of stresses and demands. The initial pleasure fades, and the underlying feeling of dissatisfaction, the subtle hum of not enough, returns. And what does the mind do? It immediately identifies a new target, a new X. Okay, it says, the car is nice, but I'll be really happy when I get that house on the corner. We are on a great treadmill, running faster and faster, acquiring more and more, yet never truly arriving anywhere. We are exhausting ourselves in the pursuit of a phantom. Here, we must make a vital distinction between pleasure and true happiness. Pleasure is a wonderful part of life, but it is not happiness. Pleasure is dependent on external stimuli. It is the taste of delicious food, the feeling of a warm bath, the sound of praise, the excitement of a new experience. These things are delightful, but they are, by their very nature, fleeting. They depend on conditions being just right, conditions that are often outside of our control. To build one's life on the pursuit of pleasure is to build a house on the sand, constantly at the mercy of the changing tides. True happiness, the deep and abiding well-being that we all yearn for, is something different. It is an internal state. It is a sense of peace, resilience, and contentment that is not dependent on the next thrill. It is the quiet joy of a calm and balanced mind. It is the peace of the deep ocean, which remains undisturbed even when the surface is turbulent. This is the happiness that can coexist with both pleasure and pain. This is the happiness that is not a fleeting destination, but a sustainable way of being. There is a stark and ancient Buddhist parable that illustrates the danger of chasing happiness outside ourselves. A hungry stray dog finds an old bone, bleached white by the sun, completely stripped of any meat or marrow. Driven by its desperate hunger, the dog begins to gnaw on the bone with all its might. It chews and chews for hours, its jaw aching, its teeth scraping against the hard, dry surface. The bone yields nothing, but the dog is relentless, and soon, from the sheer force of its own effort, its gums begin to tear and bleed. A small trickle of warm, salty blood flows onto the bone. The dog tastes it, and in its delusion, the dog believes that this sweet, nourishing taste is coming from the bone itself. This mistaken belief drives it into a frenzy. It redoubles its efforts, gnawing and scraping with even more ferocity, injuring itself more and more, all for the fleeting pleasure of tasting its own blood. We are so often like this dog. We chase after external things, wealth, status, fame, endless sensory gratification, believing that they hold the secret nourishment we crave. We exhaust our bodies, we stress our minds, we sacrifice our peace, we injure our hearts in the pursuit. Any brief pleasure we receive is often just the taste of our own blood-temporary excitement, generated by our own striving, which we mistake for genuine fulfillment coming from the object of our desire. We are hurting ourselves in the pursuit of an illusion, all the while ignoring the true source of nourishment that is already within us. The profound truth is that lasting happiness is not built upon a foundation of excitement, but upon a foundation of peace. When the mind is at ease, when it is not constantly grasping for the next thing or pushing away the present moment, a natural, quiet joy begins to emerge. It is not the loud, frantic happiness of a carnival, but the gentle, steady well-being of a peaceful garden. The spiritual path is therefore not about adding more things to our lives in order to become happy. It is about gently removing the inner obstacles, the clinging, the aversion, the illusions that obscure the peace and contentment that are our birthright. We can practice this by learning to find joy in things that require no conditions, no striving, no acquiring. Can you find a simple joy in the feeling of one deep, full breath? Can you find a quiet happiness in watching a single cloud drift across the infinite sky? Can you feel a sense of contentment in the simple warmth of the sun on your skin? Can you touch the miracle of just being alive right now without needing to accomplish a single thing? This is a radical practice. It retrains the mind to find fulfillment not in having or doing, but simply in being. It is the discovery that you do not need to chase the rainbow, because the light that creates it has been shining within you all along. The great chase for happiness is the very activity that keeps happiness at bay. True well-being is not something we acquire, it is something we uncover. When we finally get tired of running, when we stop chasing every desire and fleeing every fear, we can finally come to rest. And in that rest, we find what we have been searching for. This realization that we don't need to add more to our lives, but can instead find incredible freedom by subtracting the unnecessary, by letting go of the chase itself, leads us to a path of profound liberation, the path of simplicity. Having realized that the frantic, outward search for happiness is a chase that never ends, we are invited to consider a different path. If adding more to our lives does not bring fulfillment, perhaps the secret lies not in adding, but in subtracting. This is the path of simplicity. It is the art of living more lightly, of intentionally clearing away the non-essential, so that the essential has room to breathe, to shine, and to nourish us. Simplicity is not about deprivation or a joyless, stark existence. It is about freedom. It is the discovery that the less we need, the richer and more free we truly are. When we hear the word simplicity or minimalism, we often think first of our physical possessions. We live in a culture that encourages us to accumulate, to believe that our worth is tied to what we own. But our possessions come with a hidden cost. We think we own them, but so often they end up owning us. They demand our time to organize and clean them. They demand our money to ensure and maintain them. They demand our mental energy as we worry about them being lost, stolen, or broken. They clutter our homes, and in doing so, they clutter our minds. The simple act of clearing our physical space, of letting go of objects that no longer serve a purpose or bring us joy, can be a profound spiritual practice. As we hold an object in our hands and ask, "Do I truly need this?" we are also practicing a deeper inquiry. We are learning to distinguish between our true needs and the endless desires manufactured by our culture and our own restless minds. Letting go of a physical object can be a powerful ritual for letting go of an inner attachment, but the beauty of simplicity extends far beyond our closets and cupboards. We can apply this principle of clearing the non-essential to every aspect of our lives. Consider the clutter of our commitments. Our schedules are often packed with obligations and activities that drain our energy and leave us feeling scattered and overwhelmed. We say yes to things out of guilt, habit, or a fear of missing out. The simplicity of the schedule means learning the courageous art of saying no. A gentle, respectful no to the non-essential is a powerful yes to what truly matters. It is a yes to our well-being, to our peace, to spending quality time with our loved ones, and to having the space for quiet contemplation. It is the choice of depth over breadth. Consider also the clutter of information. We are drowning in a constant stream of news, opinions, social media updates, and digital noise. This ceaseless torrent of information creates a subtle but persistent state of anxiety and mental agitation. Mental simplicity is the act of becoming a conscious curator of what we allow into our minds. It is choosing to consume information that is nourishing, useful, and uplifting, while consciously unplugging from the endless, anxious scroll. It is trusting that we do not need to know everything that is happening everywhere in the world at every moment of the day. It is the act of protecting the quiet sanctuary of our own mind. Our outer world is so often a direct reflection of our inner world. A cluttered, chaotic home often mirrors a cluttered, chaotic mind. A schedule packed with frantic activity reflects a mind that is afraid to be still. Therefore, simplifying our outer life is one of the most effective ways to simplify our inner life. When we create physical space, we create mental space. When we slow down our schedule, we slow down our mind. We discover that we need so much less than we thought to be happy. There is a beautiful Zen story about a master named Ryokan, who lived a life of ultimate simplicity in a small hut at the foot of a mountain. One evening, a thief broke into his hut, but was dismayed to find nothing of value to steal. Ryokan, returning and finding the thief, felt not anger, but compassion. He said, "You must have come a long way to visit me. You should not leave empty-handed." Ryokan then took off his own robes, his only real possession, and said, "Please take these as a gift." The thief, completely baffled, took the clothes and disappeared into the night. Ryokan then sat naked in the doorway of his empty hut, looking at the brilliant full moon, and he thought to himself, "Poor man, I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon." This story reveals the heart of true wealth. Ryokan, who had nothing, was infinitely rich. He possessed his own peace, his boundless compassion, and his ability to appreciate the simple, profound beauty of the present moment, a treasure that could not be stolen. The thief, whose mind was consumed with getting and taking, was the one who was truly impoverished, for he could not see the magnificent treasure that was being offered to him freely. Simplicity allows us to stop seeking treasures that can be bought and sold, and to discover the priceless riches that are already here. It is the realization that true wealth is not having more, but wanting less. It is the deep contentment found in the simple state of having enough. When we stop the frantic chase for more, when we begin to gently let go of the clutter in our homes, our schedules, and our minds, we feel a profound sense of lightness and relief. It is the feeling of setting down a heavy, invisible burden that we didn't even realize we were carrying. This journey of subtraction, of clearing away the noise, the attachments, and the complications, does not leave us empty or diminished. Instead, this great emptying reveals what was there all along, hidden beneath the debris. It brings us home to our most essential being, our original nature. It is a nature that is not complicated, that is not something we must strive to achieve or build. It is a state of being that is utterly, beautifully, and effortlessly natural. We have journeyed far on this inner path. We have learned to unburden ourselves from the weight of attachment. We have made peace with the ever-changing river of impermanence. We have found refuge in the present moment, anchored by the breath. We have seen that we are the sky, not the passing clouds of thought. We have learned to welcome our emotions as honored guests. We have watered the seeds of compassion for ourselves and for all others. We have found the joy of an open, generous hand and the unshakable stability of an equanimous heart. We have discovered the profound peace of silence and let go of the frantic, outward search for happiness, embracing instead the liberating path of simplicity. All of these practices, all of this letting go, have not been about becoming someone new. They have been about clearing away the dust and debris to reveal what has been here all along. They have been a journey of returning home to our true nature. What is this true nature? It is not the anxious, striving, separate self that we have learned to identify with. That self, the ego, is like a covering of mud and grime that has accumulated over a lifetime. Our true nature is what lies beneath. It is like a magnificent statue made of pure, shining gold. The gold has always been there, perfect and untarnished. The spiritual path is not the work of creating the gold. It is simply the patient and loving work of washing away the dirt that has obscured its radiance, the dirt of our fears, our conditioning, our mistaken beliefs. Our true nature is the vast, open, silent awareness that has been the witness to our entire life. It is the peaceful sky that was never harmed by the storm clouds of our anger or the dark fogs of our sorrow. It is the deep, still ocean that was never disturbed by the turbulent waves on its surface. It has always been here. It is what you are, at your very core. This understanding turns the spiritual search completely on its head. We realize that enlightenment, or awakening, is not an act of achievement. It is an act of recognition. It is not about transforming ourselves from a flawed human into a perfect saint. It is simply waking up from a long and convincing dream, the dream that we were a small, separate and suffering person. The moment of awakening is the moment we realize we are not the character in the dream. We are the spacious awareness in which the dream is happening. This leads us to the ultimate and most subtle act of letting go. We must let go of the seeker. We must let go of the search itself. For as long as we are seeking for peace, we are reinforcing the belief that peace is not already here. As long as we are striving to reach a future state of enlightenment, we are overlooking the enlightened nature of our own present moment awareness. The search itself becomes the final obstacle. The peace you have been looking for is the very peace that is looking. The awareness you have been trying to cultivate is the very awareness that is here, right now, hearing these words. There is a beautiful parable that speaks to this. There was once a poor man who had a very wealthy and generous friend. One evening, they sat talking and drinking together, and the poor man fell into a drunken sleep. His friend was called away on an urgent journey, but before he left, he wanted to help his friend escape his poverty. Not wishing to wound the man's pride with a direct handout, he took a priceless, wish-fulfilling jewel and carefully sewed it into the inner lining of his friend's ragged coat. The poor man awoke the next morning, unaware of the treasure he now carried. He continued his life of struggle, wandering from town to town, begging for food, sleeping in shelters, always dreaming of a better life, always searching for some lucky break that would end his suffering. For years and years he wandered, enduring immense hardship, all the while carrying an infinite treasure with him. One day, by a great coincidence, he ran into his old friend. The wealthy friend was shocked to see him still in such a miserable state. "My dear friend," he exclaimed, "why are you still living like this? All those years ago, I gave you a jewel that could have fulfilled your every need. It has been with you this whole time." He showed the bewildered man where to look, and the man reached into the tattered lining of his own coat, and his fingers closed around the magnificent, warm jewel. He was speechless, realizing that he had been living as a pauper while possessing a fortune beyond measure. We are all this man. Our true nature, inherent peace, wisdom, and loving heart is this priceless jewel. It has been sewn into the very fabric of our being from the very beginning. Yet we wander through life, searching everywhere outside of ourselves for the happiness and security that we believe we lack, all the while carrying the treasure within. The journey is not about finding some new jewel. It is simply about stopping the frantic search, turning our attention inward, and recognizing what has always been here. When we begin to rest in this recognition, our way of being in the world begins to change. Life becomes less of a battle and more of a dance. We stop trying so hard to force outcomes, to control others, to be someone we think we should be. Our actions begin to arise not from anxious calculation or egoic desire, but from a place of quiet, intuitive clarity. This is what the Taoists call Wu Wei, or effortless action. We become like water, which flows around obstacles without resisting them, always finding the path of least resistance. We become like a cloud, which drifts in the sky, taking on whatever form the winds suggest, without a rigid agenda of its own. We live more naturally, more spontaneously, more gracefully. We are no longer struggling against the current of life, but have learned to flow with it. This is the great homecoming. It is not an end, but a new and more beautiful beginning. It is the beginning of a life lived from a place of trust, ease, and authentic peace. This journey of discovery, from the recognition of our burdens to the homecoming in our true nature, now comes to a gentle pause. Let us take a moment to reflect on this path we have traveled together. We have traveled a great distance together on this inward journey. We began in the dark, noisy room of a restless mind, feeling the immense weight of the burdens we carried, the heavy stones of past regret and the anxious phantoms of the future. With gentleness, we learned to stop struggling and to simply look. We found the unshakable anchor of the breath, and in it, the safe harbor of the present moment. We learned to sit on the banks of our own minds, watching the clouds of thought and the weather of our emotions pass by, realizing that we are not the storm, but the vast, peaceful sky that holds it all. We watered the seeds of compassion and loving kindness in our hearts, discovering the joy of generosity and the profound stability of a balanced mind. We let go of the frantic search for happiness outside ourselves and found a quiet contentment in the beauty of simplicity. And finally, we returned home to the recognition of our own true nature, the silent, aware, and peaceful presence that has been here all along. The ultimate truth of this journey is this: peace is not a distant destination you must strive to reach. It is not something you can acquire, achieve, or earn. It is your very nature. It is the ground of your being, which was temporarily obscured by the dust of your thinking. You are not the fleeting thoughts, the changing emotions, the endless stories. You are the silent, spacious awareness in which all of these things arise and pass away. Peace is not the absence of storms in your life. Peace is the ability to find the calm, unwavering eye in the center of the storm. It is the discovery that no matter how turbulent the waves on the surface, the depths of your ocean are always, always still. As you now prepare to drift into sleep, know that you have everything you need. The key to the only prison that ever held you has always been in your own hand. That key is your own gentle, non-judgmental awareness. The anchor of your breath is always with you, a faithful friend ready to bring you home to the present moment. The gift of this peace is not something that can be taken away from you, for it is not something that was ever given to you from the outside. It is you. Let go now of all effort. Let go of the need to understand, the need to remember, the need to do anything at all. Trust in this deep, quiet peace. Trust that you are being held in a space of immense kindness and safety. Sleep is not something you must chase. It is a gentle visitor that will arrive when you have created a peaceful home for it. And so, rest now. Rest deeply. May you be safe. May you be happy. And may you awaken to the peace that is and has always been right here within you.